night, which is different to 40k Ladies Night. I'm joined by three of the best looking men in this show. Nathan Prescott. What are you saying, Nathan?
Hello, I only accept Bitcoins now for work. Apparently.
Yes, Nathan!
On the advice of James. That's what I'm going for.
Someone rings you, it's like, hello, I want a heater put in.
Have you got Bitcoins?
Brilliant. Okay, Nate, thanks for that. James, hello, how are you?
Yeah, super good. This week I gained myself some underwear with Nathan's face on, so I'm super happy.
Me too. And Dan, how you doing? You well?
I'm A-OK. I'm fantastic. I'm currently in the process of caffeinating my bloodstream, which will bring me from a 10 to an 11.
Okay, good. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. It's very nice and lovely for you to be here. Podcast guys, thanks for staying hydrated and being a great old hydro homie. And, of course, thank you to everyone who listened live. Today's show is going to be talking about the Daughters of Khaine Battletome. Now, I've already, earlier in the week, talked about the Daughters of Khaine Battletome yesterday, actually, on Sunday. So we went through all the War Scrolls. So today we're going to do it a little bit different. I do tend to find the review shows, in brackets, in even ones that we've done, sometimes a little bit long-winded. So we're going to try a different approach today. I've loaded my brain up. I'm going to basically tell the dudes some of the stuff, and then I'm going to get them to ask some questions and generally kind of like think through the book. So it's going to be an exciting time. First time we've tried it, it might go terribly, or it might be super interesting, and most importantly, it might be fun. Now, Dan, don't let that, don't get too excited by that, because I know you do love a bit of fun.
I'm gonna look. What I'm gonna try and do is restrain myself, and anytime I find my heart rate is elevated or my levels of exuberance are reaching a critical mass, I'll turn it right back down.
Okay. I'm happy with that. Nathan, there's some really exciting things to tell you next week when we do the Slanesh book, because, of course, you, for the first time ever since the release of the Gits book, might be like over the moon at how shit a book is. You might be like, oh my god, Gits are better than this.
Gits are better than all the books. What are you saying? Fuck you.
What are you saying? I agree, Nate. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, you'll have the same reaction now when we talk about whatever we're talking about.
Daughters of Khaine.
Them. Yeah, them. We're better than them too.
Well, so hello to Bon Clodger, thank you for resubscribing, and also to Marty, big love to you, that's really appreciated. A question from Bon is, I've listened to two different reviews including ours. Why are your views so differing between my review and the review of another show? I don't know, I don't own a shop where I need to sell you any of the products. That really helps me be able to just say what I think. I've immersed myself in the meta and the game, even though COVID's been going on. I do a weekly stat show on it. Maybe that's why. Or maybe I'm just really crap and I know fuck all. There's like a wide variety of reasons why. I'm going to go for I'm crap and I know fuck all. Let's go for that. That's my reasoning. That's the good one. Right, so I need to find out how everyone is. Nathan, am I right in thinking that you'll buy a campfire somewhere?
Yeah. I'm in my dang cold cave. I've moved to another cave and there's a fire. I'm painting a gargant in the light of the fire, in the firelight.
And how far, percentage-wise, are you into that gargant?
Oh, fucking hell. I've not done a lot. I decided to make him a different shade of skin, so I probably went backwards a bit. Let's say... Oh, I've just touched up his moustache, so I reckon that's added another 0.7%. So let's go with 43.2%.
That's quite far.
Yeah. Well, the skin is a lot of the gargant.
Nate, does it knock you back a little bit knowing that you have to rebase him?
Yeah. I mean, they're more liars. Whatever size they say, you can't believe it now.
25 mil, I think, giants now.
Yeah, per foot.
Over.
Each
Per
foot is on a
foot.
25 mil base.
And then
Because
you
they're
can
so-
engage each foot as an individual model.
Exactly. Yep. You can destroy 1 foot and then it hops.
Fuck.
So to answer Bobbin in the chat, there are no liberators in this book, so Dan's safe and happy, and he's over the moon. James,
Thank
catch me up.
God.
How have you been? What's been going on? Nathan, you're still working on the Gargant. Super excited. Are you only doing the one Mega Gargant as an ally, or a Mega Gargant army? What you feels?
At the moment, he'll just be an ally. And because my Gits army, I've got 3 ale guzzlers, because they're ale guzzlers, not man crushers.
You refuse.
So
Do you refuse? Do you refuse to recognise them? Is this like a I don't want to get us defunded, but is this a bit of like a Palestine situation? You're like, I'm not recognising the state of man crushers, and you're like only ale guzzlers.
Well, ale guzzlers just sound better, don't they? So I can relate to ale guzzlers. Man crushers, I guess a little bit, but yeah. Fair enough. Maybe I do relate to man crushers. We'll see how it goes. But at the moment, they're ale guzzlers. So.
Well, I want to ask the other two show hosts how they are, but talking about man crushers, I think that brings Sigvald up, and I can't miss a good segue. I don't know if you've noticed the new Sigvald model, Nathan. Have you taken the chance to 360 him on the Games Workshop site?
No, I've seen some very, very fine close-ups that people have done, and that is that's been great. Yeah, I'm very impressed by that part of the model. That's good.
Do you own similar Greaves?
Someone made a point in the chat.
I rather
if
He
you
didn't
guys-
say no. He didn't say no.
He didn't say
So
no,
let's
yeah,
put that
We've
out.
got nothing to say no.
Well,
one of
yeah.
the things
Walker.
about them is that he's wearing chaps. He's wearing armor chaps.
Mm.
And I'm now no longer saying assless chaps. Dan, I think we're growing up on a farm, and I think you were a cowboy in Australia. I think this is right. So let me just double check on
You're
that.
exactly right. I was definitely a cowboy. I rode cows and I was a boy.
Is it correct that, and I'm asking you, Dan, specifically because I think you know, all chaps actually are assless. Like assless chaps is is redundant. You don't need to say it. All chaps are indeed without ass.
The idea, well, you should have pants underneath them.
Should you?
Yeah, they go over your trousers.
But doesn't it depend where I am and how confident I am in my ass?
You know what? That's genuinely, I've never considered it that way, and you are 100% correct. So they're Schrodinger's ass, basically. It both exists and doesn't exist at the same time, depending on your level of confidence.
Perfect. Well, talking about confidence, Colonel Cabbage has made what I can only describe as a fantastic suggestion, which I'd like to ask James if he's into creating, which is a line of Speedos, Honest Wargamer Speedos, called Man Crushers. I'm in.
Just really tight. Everyone has to buy a size 2 down.
You only sell them as smalls. That's it.
We definitely never sell smalls of anything either.
What the fuck are you trying to say about the Honest Wargamer community? That we need to drink a lot of water and go for a walk? Fuck you, James. Yeah,
how dare
lockdown's
you.
been hard on all of us. Right, okay. James, how have you been? You been okay?
Yeah, pretty good. What have I done? Not a lot. I am on annual leave this week, so I have been painting some Rohan army. Had a bunch more Rohan turn up, so I've been painting them. And I'm slightly obsessed with a computer game at the moment, so I've poured a lot of time into that.
Okay, all right, nice. That's okay. Lockdown's got us all in different places. You're also, as I understand it, obsessed with Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, the game's good. The game's good. Like, I've been piddling about, reading lists, seeing the stupid narrative side of it, and I'm falling down that painful hole of being a drunk Dan, but not being drunk and buying giant lots of Lord of the Rings models from eBay rather than buying things from Amazon. But it's basically the same stuff.
It's
turns
pretty
up. I
much
don't know
the
what
same
I've
thing.
ordered.
Yep.
I have to open a box. Some days it's good. Some days I realise there's more plastic models than I'd ever want to strip in an entire life.
Is this like that show? Like, is this a spin-off show that we're going to see where James just does unboxings of things he doesn't quite know?
Yeah.
Maybe we
Yeah.
should do that.
It'll
James
be-
opens boxes.
It'll
People
be
could just
you
send
and
me
I.
boxes. I'll open them.
It'll be you and I hung over, being like, what did we get from Amazon last night? And just like opening it up and being like, a keyboard shield. Thank God.
Just what I've always needed.
That was one of the things I got.
James, was the excitement for Lord of the Rings because they were able to get a really quality FAQ?
Yeah, let's. I think it's a very balanced rule set from all the stuff I've read.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched the Lord of the Rings films while I was locked down because they came out in 4K. So
okay,
probably another
question for you, and I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. And obviously, age is but a number to some people, specifically members of pop punk bands and their young audience.
It's not just a phase.
The question is how does everyone feel about the fact that Aragorn was 88, and that's like an acceptable age, but really, like, she was 2,988 years old. Like,
it's just a number, Rob.
Yeah, but she was young at heart. Like, you know, like
age is just a number.
I don't think any of that's okay. Let's move this entire conversation to somewhere fucking else as quickly as possible.
We probably should, because I was about to pick on you, so get moving.
Dan, I look young. Dan, how you doing? What's going on?
I'm good. I'd just like to quickly piggyback on what James was finishing up the previous conversation there, and that, Rob, you are fantastic at throwing stones inside of glass houses. Wow. So I'm great. I'm very good. I'm very, very good. I'm excited. Some more War Dollies is on the way, and I was sober purchasing these ones. So that is just a big step up, because now I won't. I have an admission.
Yeah?
I have an admission. I don't know if I did this intentionally or accidentally. I bought a box of Liberators.
Oh! What did you buy the Liberators for?
That's the reason that I'm pretty sure it was either an accident or drunk Dan just fast and loose with his clicky fingers. Because I'm not using them for anything. I just have them now.
Maybe use them as basing materials.
That's what I'm thinking. Basing materials, objectives, my idea of the Liberator sinking into poo. So this is my shame. My shame has come full circle now.
It's probably important that people tag you in Liberators, though, so you can see the paint schemes.
That
probably would help.
If someone hasn't joined us before, Dan's had like a love-hate relationship with Liberators since the Marathi book.
Just hate. Like, and it's not since the Marathi book, it's since like Age of Sigmar 1.5.
And it feels like very much Dan's attraction to Liberators is very much like my attraction to women. Anything that reminds me of something that I hate, like my childhood, really kind of like reflects on me and something that I decide to pick up on. So, Dan, maybe this is just, you're just vibing with your inner id, right?
Possibly. There's some tiny little part of me that just wants to stare into the void. And when I look into the void, a Liberator looks back at me.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. I don't know what you're going to do with them. Have you got any thoughts?
My shame is complete. I don't know, but once I figure it out, I'll be sure to let everybody know.
Okay. And just for that dig you took at me earlier, I want you to know that I never spoke to that single mum again. So I wish you would keep bringing it up. Now. I didn't. Anyway, right. So let's go into the news section. The news section, everyone. So big news. Obviously, 2 whole Battletomes have been announced. Hey Woe is in the chat. That's probably massive news. Love that guy. He's hilarious. And we're joined by a bunch of awesome people on Twitch, so thank you for joining us. You're all brilliant. So 2 new Battletomes, Sinesh and Daughters of Khaine. We're going to be talking about Daughters of Khaine. They've all gone on pre-order. Loads of models out. Dan, Nathan, James. Nathan, I'll start with you. Any of those models like take your fancy, at least looks-wise?
This is the Slanesh ones, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the basic foot archers look all right, I guess. If you like little lithe shooty things, yeah, they look cool. The Hellstrider steeds look great as well. Actually, the whatever they're called,
the archer versions or the marchers.
I'm talking about the animals that they're riding on. That looks sweet.
So they're actually exalted steeds of Sinesh, is something that we've learned, because they do have 4 wounds each, not 2 wounds each. So we thought that they were just updated Seekers, but they're not. They're exalted Seekers. The next time
like the exalted eels that the Achillean eel riders ride on.
Exactly. Exactly like that. I can't wait for Exalted Kurnoth Hunters. They're going to be chunkier and better.
Just you wait till you see Exalted Squigs.
Oh my god! 4 wound squigs. I'm so into it. That'll be so good. James, any of the new releases caught your fancy?
Just them Slangor.
Oh. What is it attracted you about the Slangor? The fact that they make a really good dart unit, or the fact that they look great?
They're Beasts of Chaos, aren't they? You got to stick with what you know.
I mean, that's true. I've got some really hot information for you about Beasts of Chaos in a moment, if you're interested.
Excellent.
When we get to the stonk
Always.
section. Dan, any of the new releases got you fancy? Twitch chat also, same question to you. Obviously.
Yeah, I honestly, all of the Slaanesh stuff that's come out, because I've said multiple times, and so it's old news to anyone who listens to us, but I really enjoy in any Chaos faction the Mortals. Like I don't care so much for the demons. They have to support their god. It's not like you can have a plague bearer who's like, I think I'm going to put on some silk and be all about Slaanesh today. But the mortals that give their souls and their lives to a particular god, they're the ones I find the most interesting. So finally that Slaaneshi book is kind of tickling me a little bit, because I'm like, ooh, these are the humans that have done the business, and that grabs me. So yeah, the whole release of the Mortal faction for Slaanesh.
Okay, well that's really great. I'm really happy about that. Would it change your mind at all if I told you that they were giga shit?
I have never been one, given that I played Dispossessed for so long.
Which
I've never been one
shit.
to be. I've never been when they weren't top tier. I've never been one to steer clear of an army because of how they played on the table, except maybe Sylvaneth.
Okay, I just want you to know that they're like Sylvaneth. But like, it's nice to hear. Like, it's interesting. You're like, oh fuck it, I don't care that they're rubbish, because I do wonder how people feel before they learn the information of how something plays. Right? You're like, oh, I really like that, and someone's like, that's rubbish. You're like, oh, fuck it, I'll play it anyway. That's a cool feeling to have for a while. I think probably. Until it's not. Okay.
So you go to a tournament.
Yeah. So, stonk section, boys. We're going to go into the stonks. It's okay if you haven't prepared. I am interested. You can only give me one, a buy or a sell. Twitch chat, same thing for you in the chat. I'm fascinated to know what you guys think. What is Twitch chat? What's your stonks? And you three, what are your stonks? Oh, sorry. Actually, I've completely skipped a piece of news. Before I'll give you a minute to think about it. Some of the news also this Saturday. It seems Games Workshop are going to be doing a reveal show as well, and also this Saturday, the Honest Wargamer will be doing live coverage of the knockout tournament final for Hammer Time 7. So there'll be 8 players playing in a knockout series of 3 rounds, and we'll be live streaming it. So that'll be this Saturday as well. There has been a preview, and they've said that They said that they're going to be something to do with the Lords. An image has gone up. It looks very much like. Oh, actually, there's 2 pieces of news. There's a whole other piece of news. There's an image that's gone up that looks like it's got both. It's definitely got some sort of Lumineth in, but it also looks like we might be seeing some more vampires. You guys got any thoughts on that?
Oh, cool. Another double release.
Yeah, potentially. Hey, Romar Winters, hope you're well. Yeah, have you got any thoughts, James?
Are they pirates?
No, vampires. It seems. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Nathan, you got any feelings on either of those 2 factions?
Will they make the elves pirates? Yeah, pirate elves.
No, we already have seen all of the elves, haven't we? Apart from the bolt thrower and the sword masters, so we haven't seen those yet. So I think we're going to be seeing this in a bit. Dan, you got any thoughts on any of it?
On those ones, not massively. Again, just slightly disappointed to see an army with its release cycle completed 6 months after it's released, basically. I would have liked it to be a much shorter gap or a much longer one.
Oh, really? Yeah. I mean, it's not long since we saw the release of everything else that's come out, right? Like, so it's quite soon. I, for one, am very excited. I imagine it's going to be the rest of the Realm Lord stuff, probably along with an announcement as well of the Teclis book, which we know is already coming out. But I would like to get my beady eyes all over the Gravelords range. And I'd be excited to see that. We've already seen a leak for the Gravelords. It's definitely going to be a book, just to do some quick kind of like logic here. We know that we're getting Cursed City, which is Warhammer Quest, but we've also seen a leak, which is a clan pack Gravelords frontage, and there has never been a Soulblight Gravelords faction. So it's new. It's a new name for a new faction, and therefore a new name for a new faction means a new faction, therefore a new book. So that's a really exciting kind of like future I'm excited about. You guys got any feelings about vampires? Nathan, how do you feel about vamps?
Well, they're not my cup of tea, but I think my son might be interested in them. So yeah, I will be following whatever they release with interest and see what he thinks of them, because he plays them a lot in Total Warhammer. So yeah.
Okay.
It'll be interesting to see. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Speckles, am I your son, Nathan? There's just loads of guys just at home now listening to the podcast. Like, wait, am I Nathan's son? I'm so excited too. James, have you got any feelings?
Are they pirates?
Oh my god, fine.
Sorry, I'm just in a mood to wind you up, I think.
It's been sat on that one.
Nathan is indeed a dad to two children and also a daddy, which weirdly are different roles. Those are whole different roles.
Both require arseless chaps. Just one on the
No,
farm.
they're just chaps. They're all assless.
They're all assless. Sorry, they're all assless.
Okay, right. Now, I'm going to get to some news now, which... 2021, Rob, I'm obviously trying to be a bit more upbeat, trying to like approach stuff in a more fun manner. But a bit of a... I don't want to jump down Games Workshop's throat, but it's made me pretty livid. Pretty livid. They've released, I don't know if you guys have seen, a new Uruk model. And the Uruk model I'd obviously like yours guys' opinions on in a moment. But the thing that has made me furious is it does look like that Uruk model has got nipples. And we know the law is no nipple Uruks. That's the... Nathan, you were the one who told us.
No, I didn't know the law because I painted my Uruks at nipples.
You paint the nipples on?
I put it... Well, I've got a war chanter which has got nipples. So there you go.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I say free the nipple.
You say free the Uruk nipple.
Why do we think that they don't have nipples?
So, because they're not mammalian. They don't like breastfeed. They're born from mushrooms.
Well, yeah, but what do they eat when they're born?
Huh? Mushrooms.
What do they?
I know.
What? So they're born of mushrooms, and they're like, oh, I'm a fucking cannibal. I'll eat my brother because he's not born yet.
It's okay. Don't worry. Sorry Again's already solved it for me. They're not nipples. They're chest squigs. That's fine. That's sorted me right out. That's okay. The law is balanced. Yeah.
Nipple squigs.
I also like the fact that someone just said, "You've got nipples, though, Rob." Like, what are yours for?
You can milk anything with nipples. You've got nipples. Can you milk me?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
What'll be more interesting is obviously that was the Auric Warclan reveal for the new Underworld Warhammer group,
which is what we're talking about.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. That's the nipple orc for those that don't know. The next one coming out is clearly Ossiarch Bone Reapers, and the question is, will they have nipples?
The OCR Bone Reaper model.
Bone nipples.
Yeah.
If he's got bone nipples, I don't even know. I don't even know what to claim.
I kind of want to see it.
Sorry.
I just really want to see that now.
James, what if he's an OBR with nipples who's a pirate?
Oh, I'm in. I'll buy that. I'll buy
fierce.
that faction.
Nathan, so it's a new Savage Uruk model, and actually might be the first new Savage Uruk model we've seen in years, right? I'm pretty certain. And so what do you think of the Walk Around Abound Savage Uruk?
Yeah, I think they tease one the other day as well. I don't know.
I think.
Yeah, it was the same one. Okay. Yeah. Oh, he looks great. I mean, I've been looking at the Bone Splitters for a while now. They're still great models. They're the plastic kit that's like the Savages and the Savages on boars.
Can you use those
Great
savages on
stuff.
boars still?
Yeah.
Just no one does.
Really? Some people do. They're pretty good. You can make them fly. Give them fly and triple move. They're great.
Just like eels.
Yeah. Kind of like eels.
Yeah, just better. And so,
yeah, that's true.
yeah. So yeah, I'm kind of interested to see what the rest of that warband looks like. But yeah, the bone splitters are a cool range. Even the old model, like the old resin Wergog Prophet guy, that is a cool model with his fancy cloak and the mask and everything. So yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, he's a super cool model. He looks really good. And as pointed out, a couple of other awesome models we've seen as well. We saw the Kernothi model released as well, which I know are all the elf boys in the chat. And big shout out if you are hugging your body pillow, are just absolutely over the moon about that Kernothi, which is the the Wanderers, but they seem to be moved on. But the Wanderers, interestingly, in the narrative they never stayed around in the mortal realms. So during the Age of Chaos, they didn't stay and help defend the groves with the Sylvaneth, and instead they went and hid in Azir. And so now Alariel, I think, has forgiven them a little bit, but Drycha, because she's got that good energy, that I'll never forgive energy. I love that energy that she brings to the party. She's like, no, fuck you, Wanderers, and eats them whenever she sees them, which I'm pro that one. But the Kernothi, I think, are elves that stayed in the forest, and so we're going to see and they're a hint towards us getting more wood elves. Have you guys got any vibes on those? Any feels for the Kernothi?
None whatsoever. They're filthy elves.
If there's more war dancers, I'm a big fan.
Oh, really? You like the war dancer models?
Love the old war dancer models. I think so. One of my big things when I was a kid, I think I've talked about it before, but I was obsessed with owning Warhammer Quest, but was 9 and it was £100 or whatever. And the war dancer, just such a great model. I think if you go back to old Warhammer models when everything was lead, or all the same plastic model, the war dancers were one of the first ones that had some sort of dynamic to them. So I guess probably that. But yeah, big fan. They bring wood elves back, I'd probably be keen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you're excited about war dancers. Nathan, you got any vibes on? I'm a big fan of the whole Sylvaneth tree range. That I'm super into that. I think it's really cool. I watched Lord of the Rings as a kid, and I was like, Legolas, what a cool guy. And now I'm older, I'm obviously Gimli's the right decision. It's just an age thing, I think. You really start to understand it as you grow.
You relate more to Gimli than to Legolas.
Yeah, and then as time is going on, I just really understand Sam, and I'm vibing on Sam. He's got it going on.
Sam has the hardest time to...
Sam breezes through it. Sam's just constantly oh, for fuck's sake, everyone around me is an idiot. Give me the ring, I'll get it up the mountain, and I'll go home. He's just a workman. And
also, always it's lunchtime, lads, let's eat. You're at the end of the world. There's smoke everywhere. You're probably coughing up black smoke, and he's like, I think it's lunchtime. It's about 12 o'clock. Has anyone got potatoes?
Everyone's like, hey, should we finish the job here? And he's like, not right now. We're on contractually mandated smoko.
Sam is 100% a paid union member. He's fully up on his dues. He's probably even whoever the local rep is. He's probably the rep for his local union.
You know what? The rest of them are all on salary, and Sam is paid by the hour, basically. So he's it takes as long as it takes.
Sam had to deal with some heavy sexual tension with Frodo. What tension are you dealing with, Rob? Same energy. Exactly the same, and I'm okay.
He's just getting it from 3 people right now instead of 1.
Nate, you got any vibes on the Kernothi?
I mean, the first warband looked pretty cool. So wasn't there a centaur thing?
Yeah, man.
So I guess that tickles your fancy. So yeah, if you're into that sort of a thing. I mean, they look like they'll shoot things and they'll die pretty quick. So yeah, fine.
I like that they're hairier for elves.
Yeah,
just the amount of hair and fur is better. So that's the only reason they get any kind of a tick from me. Nath, I assume, being a fellow hirsute gentleman, you'd agree?
Yes, there's some. They look. They were a bit fawny, wasn't one of them? Like old Mr. Tumnus. So
Yep.
yeah, wouldn't mind. Yeah, we could chase those fellas around the woods and see what happens. So yeah.
I like how overtly sexual this show has got in the past 30 minutes. I apologise to all of our listeners, and also that's
the game, chasing those hairy fellas around the woods. So yeah, stop, not sexual.
Agreed. Same for me. Right, have I raced home from work? Missed anything? No, just nipples and daddy issues. So so cool. That's all the news, I think, unless anyone's got any other news that I didn't bring up. Apart from, as Eric said in the chat, it seems like Europe is not getting any of their deliveries from Games Workshop stuff, as he was saying. So that might be a bit of an issue in the future. So that's, I don't really know what to say about that. Supply lines, who knows? Loads of
Brexit.
Yeah. So let's do stonks. Have you guys had a chance to think about your stonks?
I thought we only had a minute, so I answered 25 again.
I'll go with Dan. I'm not listening to you today, James. Dan, what are you thinking?
Okay. It depends how you like to invest. However, I'm going to say you're going to want to sell Slaneshi if you're a competitive gamer, but you're going to want to buy them if you're a hobbyist. Because as far as models go, I think they've got the edge on the Daughters of Khaine in being really, really amazing and unique looking. I adore those models. So for me, that it depends what you're after. If you're a hobbyist, buy Slanesh, sell Daughters of Khaine. If you're a mad keen pro gamer who can't wait to get back to the tournament scene and make other people cry and then cry yourself when you lose, sell Slanesh, buy Daughters of Khaine. However, if you are buying Daughters of Khaine, and we'll probably get to it in a little bit, you should absolutely, right now, jump on the Underworld's element and buy the Daughters of Khaine Warband. Do you know why, Rob?
Morgweath, because she's cheaper than a hag and is better.
She's cheaper than a hag and is better. So that for me, and still has the traditional witch brew. So that for me is the stock that has gone way, 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 way up. Is the Beastgrave Daughters of Khaine Warband.
Okay, that's some good stonks. Really solid stonks there, Dan. I do also like the fact that, and to touch on it a little bit again, obviously, Games Workshop released their Meta Watch article about the painting meta. I don't know if you guys saw that article during the week, which was super fun. So like the competitive painting meta, and it's really nice that they've obviously released an entire Battletome of models to put into the painting meta and not like the meta, which is cool. James, got any stonks?
Yeah, buy netters.
Oh, only netters all the time.
Nothing can hit you.
Okay, good.
Yeah, then nothing's an issue, right? That's my stunk this week.
Okay, good one. Nathan, got any stonks?
Well, I mean, as always, the go-to stonk is sell any Legion of Asgore you have, just because they're Legion of Asgore. And but I mean, at the moment, we're expecting an Age of Sigmar number 3 to come along. So I think even with these new books, I think it's all up in the air. So just buy whatever you like the look of, because fuck knows what's going to be happening by the time that comes out. And
Neve, that's a great suggestion. This actually saves us loads of time doing this show. Everything we're about to say is worthless, so we're going to get lost now.
We should have said that when we first started the show.
What, 3 years ago?
Whenever it was. Whenever Age of Sigmar started, many years ago. Everything we say will eventually become useless. But until then, it's worth its weight in gold.
We could all buy 65. Yeah, we should probably all buy 65mm bases because they're the same as 60mm, but you get 5 extra mils.
That's good. It's good money in those, to be honest. All right, so cool, good stonks, really positive. I've got a couple of stonks. I'm going to buy, or I'd be selling, because I think they're worth a lot now. Although actually, maybe hold on to them. Maybe right now, buy Beasts of Chaos would be my current trend. I'd be buying up Beasts of Chaos, and then I'd be wait a couple of weeks until everyone catches up, Probably a couple of weeks is a bit strong for some of the fellas. And then when then all the Sneshy players realised that the Beast of Chaos kind of depraved drove element you could put into your army would be a really kind of great plug and play. Then you flog all your Beast of Chaos to those guys looking to do it. Because James, I know you're a Beast of Chaos player and a Slanesh player.
Yeah, I played Depraved Drone was the only way I played the old Slanesh book.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, it's now just... Well, it's not quite as good because you don't get exploding 6s to hit on your gore anymore. Sad face. But if you take a minimum unit of Beast of Chaos in your Depraved Drove, it fills in the battle line for Slanesh, which arguably don't have a very good battle line, which is quite nice. I quite like Demonettes though, but that's kind of up in the air at the minute. And then you can just burn them to death. Because I know, as a goat player, you love burning goats to death. It's one of your favourite things, right?
That is true, but you can't take the Beast of Chaos pizza oven in Slanesh.
You take the burning head and you just burn them straight to death in front of you. Yeah,
that's true. You cut out the middleman.
Yeah, cut them straight out.
But what if they're not cooking a pizza?
Because it's perfect, right? Like, you're like a Bray Shaman, and you're like, oh, fuck, I love burning these goats on this fire. This is so much
just
fun.
For the smell.
Yeah, exactly. And all you do then is you go, cool, I'm going to do this in Slanesh, and then you get depravity points for doing it, because that's how much you love doing it, that a god rewards you that narrative. And that's amazing. Yeah, you're just like throwing goats in, chuckling to yourself, and then you get depravity points. That's pretty brilliant. I think that's a solid pick. You got any?
Solid move.
Solid move.
Doing the math, and I can't find anything wrong with that. I think that's probably going to be the best way to play the book.
Hands down, like Hans Zimmer down is what I'd say. And then so that'd be my buy right now, and then eventually sell in a couple of weeks. And I would sell right now probably Fumroid Crushers, which is a kind of another like hot pick at the moment. Or you could even sell Witch Elves if you sat on Witch Elves, because they've become a horde army again, as they once were back in the day. So if you sat on either of those, I think there's some good sells there. I think they're going to be quite good. Okay, all right, that's it. That's the stunks section. Twitch chat, did you have any stunks? That's the real question. Big Goldfish, love seeing you in the chat. I don't think anyone. Most in Power says didn't hear it from me, but Doom Balls. Buy Doom Balls. And we didn't hear it from him.
Yeah. Who did we hear it from?
Just everyone listening right now, Most in Power did not tell us that. That's the important point. Slash Bray Shaman self-harming to summon demons. Cool. Yeah, it works. It's really thematic. I think that's right. Okay. Yeah, that's all good. You guys got any other vibes on stonks, or are you all good on those?
Well, I just like that jumping on that idea, if like the Bray Shaman killing his own units to summon demons, it's because he's aware that the demons are better than Beasts of Chaos. And so he starts out with a Beast of Chaos army, and the goal is by the end of the game to have completely swapped model for model with demons. And I think that is possibly the best, not only like storyline wise, but the best strategy for winning with Beasts of Chaos.
Yeah, I think it's super awesome. It's super awesome. So before we get into talking about Daughters of Khaine, did you three have any questions you wanted to? Because I've pretty much immersed myself in the Slanesh and the DOK book, and we're about to talk about Daughters of Khaine. But would you like any questions you got like top level about Slanesh so far, or anything that's gone off? Anything you want to ask?
About Slanesh?
Yeah.
No, just so the locust thing has changed. That's like a big thing, isn't it?
Yeah, wholly within an inch, and you can't pile in.
Is
on
it-
a 4-up or a 3-up on a Greater Demon.
It's a completely separate book, though, right? So I can use the demon book, or I can use.
No, it's a brand new book, and all the demon stuff is in it.
So the old book is now in the bin.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that book wasn't
arguably
that
the
old,
army.
was it?
Huh?
That book wasn't that old, was it?
James, not that old.
A year and a half, 2 years? It's not 2 years, is it?
No, not
No.
2 years. No.
It was just before December last year.
Mm.
was
So
it
it's
the year
April
before?
2019. Thank you, Dwarf Penguin.
Yeah.
All right.
However, I'll jump in and say I'm glad they redid the whole book. I'd be a lot shittier if it's like, okay, we're releasing the mortal side of Slanesh, but we're not going to take the time to update the demon side as well.
But
So
the last one was a demon book, and like Khorne has a mortals and a demon book, doesn't it?
No, it's just got a corn book now.
yeah.
I hold my case. Withdrawn.
Withdrawn. Thank you, Justice. Thank you to Gebs for donating £10 to the show. That's super awesome of it. And to Lugnuts Damad, who is Eye is Back, who's also resubscribed. So thank you very much, Lugnuts. That's great. And also massive thank you to Gubs there. That's brilliant. And also hi to Mamdare in the chat. Go on, Dan. What's the question?
I was just going to say, Lugnuts, we've had 2 hobby babies now at 18 months. That's always a pleasure to squirt out 2 little sprue-covered children from my girthy loins. But also, curiously, Lugnuts doesn't possess the ability to write in anything other than caps. And I assume that the caps lock button is just broken. But it's always good to see someone with that kind of aggressive passion for typing.
Massive thank you to Gebs though for donating £10 to the show. Appreciate it loads and loads. All right, so no other questions about Slash. I mean, it's pretty damning that there's 3 people who are like, nah, I don't care. James, don't you play the army?
No, because I brought Slanesh stuff for the last book, played it at my local club twice, tabled 2 people in like 2 turns, and was like, this is fucking horrid, and put it in the loft. It's been there since.
Okay, all right. Well, if it makes you any better, you can get it out, and it's horrid for a whole different set of reasons. So. Yeah,
well, maybe, because I only ever play with goats in the end anyway, so maybe I will. But probably not. I've got a load of rats to push around a table for a year.
That's perfect. Nath, you got any questions? Anything you want to ask about?
About the Slaanesh? No, I think we'll save it for when we look at the book as a whole, I think.
Perfect. Dan?
Yeah. I don't like the pile-in thing.
I'm
I'd
good.
hate to play against that, so yeah.
You think it's good?
Not being able to pile in is shit, yeah.
It's on a 3-up or a 4-up. But 3-up on a greater demon, 4-up on a regular demon hero. They're the only ones who can do it. But the enemy has to be... It's not within 6 inches like it previously was. You have to be within an inch.
Yeah. No, yeah, just not being able to pile in is pretty crap. I think it's a strong mechanic. Like we see it on the Sharks, and we see it on these guys, especially for the armies I run, big horde armies. Yeah.
Okay, but if you charge them though.
Yeah. Yeah. If I get a big enough charge in, then I don't need to pile in, but it's just a pain because that pile in move is a big part of my game. I use it a lot, so I'll be sad if I can't use it. But it doesn't sound like it'll be a problem because it sounds like most people will be put off playing the old Slaaneshies.
Okay.
So it won't be a problem against them, just against them sodding Sharks.
Does it matter anyway if you're playing Gits? Because they're like S tier anyway, aren't they?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we did some stats today. We did the stat show today. If you guys want to go back and watch it, some interesting facts is Beasts of Chaos are actually in the A tier, 50 to 55 to 60% win bracket. Gits, unfortunately, were in their own bracket. We call that bracket the bin bracket, but don't forget, don't worry, there's loads of other armies in there with you. It's quite a party, actually. Like it's a great place to be, the bin bracket. It's not just the Gits. And if it makes you any better, Legion of Asgore weren't even in the bin. They were left outside in the cold like an orphan. Yeah, like no one wanted it. It was just the worst. So yeah.
Huh. That's good. I only played 2 games last year. Was this from last year's stats?
No, well, yeah. From TTS events only.
Oh, only TTS. Okay, fair enough.
Sorry, Nath.
That's all right.
All right, okay, right. So yeah, all right, Effie. Beast of Chaos though did pretty well. Any guesses as to who the top 2 armies were? Dan?
Seraphon.
And?
Genuinely, it could be a few of them. So
OBR.
No, James, you lose.
Peace out.
I mean, Seraphon, and my only other guess would be Ideneth.
Correct. Well done, Dan. You win the prize.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, so okay. The reason that I didn't jump straight to Ideneth is that Seraphon, there are multiple good builds that you can build with that army, right? Like you can go Salamander heavy, you can go Croaknado.
80 points now.
So awful. But the reason that I hesitated to say Ideneth is that there are now other builds and other things you can do, whether with sharks, people are starting to play around with turtles, and you're not seeing the same one. So I was just expecting their win rate to drop slightly because not everyone's playing eels, but I guess competitively everyone's probably still playing eels. So yeah.
It makes you feel any better. All the new stuff has made them better.
I don't mind, genuinely don't mind armies being better. I want them to be more diverse.
Mm-hmm. Same.
I wouldn't mind if
not schools though.
Like I wouldn't mind
that's
if
just a Zimbabwean joke for Nathan.
I wouldn't mind if like Seraphon you were seeing Saurus lists winning events. Like I wouldn't mind if their book as a whole was kicking ass and taking names. I just wish there was more variety in what was kicking ass and taking names instead of like these 3 units are busted good for their price and abilities and all of that kind of jazz. But yeah, I doesn't surprise me. I guess it's just disappointing.
Yeah, I mean there was some interesting stuff really earlier. From the stat show, you guys go back to listen to it. I think not enough data yet, but we will be getting more and more data as more events open up. It's very exciting. Like Nathan said, Age of Sigmar 3 is coming soon, so like it's going to be a whole reset. So there's loads of stuff, and I think ultimately, like some of these books have had some big support recently. So I think that's why we're going to see them lifted up ultimately. Okay, all right. Let's jump on to Daughters of Khaine. Daughters of Khaine. Okay, so. I'm going to just quickly fire through some of the like top level stuff for you guys. And if you guys got any questions, please do jump in. I'd love you to do that. And then we'll, Dan and James, you guys are going to talk to us about the War Scrolls, right? And take us through that. And then we'll talk points, which is most fun because we could ask Nathan, our favorite game, Nathan, how many points is that unit worth? And then Nathan can guess, which is always my favourite game to do on the show. Basically what the whole show today has been about. Just building up to Nathan being like, how many points is this? And the answer is, too cheap. Oh, thanks to Dwarf Penguin. Oh, holy fuck. Thanks for donating £28 to the show. Fingers crossed this gets it to the magic number and no generous person knobs it up. You got us to £69 and 69p on the old donation bar. Thank you to Dwarf Penguin. Thank you. Thanks, Dwarf Penguin. That's great. Oh man, that's fucking lovely. This is dedicated to Dwarf Penguin. Here we go. So allegiance abilities. So there's 2 allegiance abilities. There's a Blood Rights table, and there's Fanatical Faith. Fanatical Faith is a 6-up DPR for the whole army. Super simple, really easy, really no messing about. The Blood Rights table is not particularly interesting. Ultimately, Battle Round 1. You get to reroll run rolls of 1. Battle round 2, you get to reroll ones making charge rolls. Battle round 3, you get to reroll hit rolls of 1 made by melee weapons. And then in addition, friendly avatars of Khaine are automatically animated. Now, you can pray to animate the avatars of Khaine, whether or not they be on foot, because you can take them on foot, or you can have them on top of a cauldron. And now that does mean if there's many avatars as you have on the board, they're all active in turn 3. Mm-hmm. And they've got a pretty bonkers like melee profile. Like it would be hilarious to see many an avatar, right? So that's going to be cool. So then number 3 you can reroll wound roll. Sorry, number 4 reroll wound rolls of 4 of 1, obviously. And then back around 5 you can reroll save rolls of 1, and your whole army is immune to battle shock, which is quite nice turn 5. I thought that was quite cool.
Yeah.
Nathan, you got any vibes on that?
Well, it's very similar to what they had before, isn't it? Those things. If not, maybe exactly the same. But yeah, got to be pretty similar.
Yeah. The important point there is that they haven't changed overly much, which I think is quite key. And so yeah, it's whatever. The other point is that the reroll ones to hit and to wound, which reroll ones to hit happens in round 3. Round 3, and reroll wounds is round 4. Is that the army mainly hits on 3s and wounds on 3s or 4. So those reroll ones are pretty nice in an army anyway, right? Having it all across the board. And actually is quite interesting if you go into Daughters of Khaine Mirror, but kind of more on that later. Command traits we're going to skip because they're fine, but we're going to talk about the temples really. You can design your own like temple, but if you are in a temple, you're going to have to take the command traits for that. So it's more like fringe case ultimately. We are going to talk about the spells though. So the Medusa can cast Arcane Mastery, which allows you to reroll 1 casting, dispelling, or unbinding roll. So that's cool. You've got Writhing Coils, which is subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks that target the general. And then you've got Fearsome Presence, which can reroll failed battle shot tests for friendly Daughters of Khaine while they're within 12 inches of this general. So not brilliant buffs, but they're fine. And then you've got Melisate Iron Scale. Was that the command trait? Damn it. Sorry, gents. Sorry, I fucked that up. I read too quick. I got too excited. Spell Law. That's what I want. Spell Law. Here we go. So Spell Law. You got Steed of Shadows, which is they can fly. It's cast on 6 and move 16 inches. That's fine. If you really want that, you could do that. You could take Little Marathi and make a fly. Which is
so
fun.
It makes the caster fly. So
yes.
It's still only the casts on themselves. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You got Pit of Shades, which is not a big deal. I'm not going to bother reading it. You got Mirror Dance, which has changed now. So Mirror Dance casting value of 6. Successfully pick 2 friendly Daughters of Khaine heroes wholly within 18 inches of the caster that are visible to them, and then you basically set them up into deep strike 9 inches away, which could be quite cool to do on Marathi and Little Khaine or whatever you wanted to do. Like, so you could kind of lift them up and take them somewhere else for a reposition. But what's changed is you aren't able to mess around with the Bringy Dingy and using Mirror Pool at the same time, which is a good change because you can't move afterwards, which is the change that's gone in there.
And that was the thing that was really messed up is like people being like, cool, I do this and then I guarantee a charge with Big Marathi turn 1 before you've got a chance to do anything.
I mean, that's the nice thing of having spent a little bit of a while with the book. Like Aldam is saying in the chat, the command traits and the artifacts of power. Well, the artifacts of power are a little bit more important, but the command traits are basically useless because your command traits are locked if you take a temple, like most of the newer books. So as much as it's nice that they're there, you're probably going to take the army-wide bonus that you get for playing a temple, right?
Yeah.
So then you've got the Withering, which is cast on a 7, which is a genuinely good spell. You can add 1 to the to wound rolls for an enemy unit that's within 18 inches. So that's pretty good. Plus 1 to wound. Yeah.
And that's on shooting and melee?
Withering has a casting value. Add 1 to the wound rolls for attacks that target that unit until your next hero phase. Yes. So that's really good. Mind Razor, so that's cast on a 7 though, so harder to cast. Mind Razor is cast on an 8, and this has changed as well. You improve the melee rend of the rend of a melee weapon by 1, and if you charge, then you add 1 to the damage characteristic of that weapon, of those weapons as well, which is pretty strong.
Yeah,
that's crunchy. Yeah.
But it's cast on an. Oh, go on, Dan.
So run forward and stab, still being the primary strategy of Daughters of Khaine players, then.
Mainly, yes. Yeah. But the damage increased by 1, but it's cast on an 8. It's wholly within 18 inches, and that Ren 1. I think a nice way to think about it is going to be. It's a buff that could happen as opposed to I need it to happen.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like less so than the war. The war chant is like you're gonna be stronger, so you put it in your list. This is I'll take Mind Razor, and if I get it, which is cool, and I manage to beat all the magic dominance that's out there, that's great. But I can't really plan for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're not magic. They're not like crazy magic people, are they? They're stabby people.
Still waiting for you to review all books in exactly that. Like, Nathan, quick TLDR on OBR. Could you give me a quick TLDR?
They just throw fucking skulls from one side of the board to the other. Unless they can't see you, then they don't.
Perfect.
Great description.
Nailed him to the wall.
It's like that, like describe an arm. It's like describe a thing badly, but
Those shit bastards.
all right, so that's Man Raiser. So a change. There's a lot of like conversation about that change because it doesn't work. It doesn't matter about the bravery of the enemy unit or whatever. I think it's nicer for the Daughters of Khaine player. Ultimately, I cast it. I +1 rend, nailed. I'm gonna charge in. I get extra damage, so that's great.
Yeah.
Then you got Shard of Despair, which is cast on a 4, and you pick an enemy unit with 18 to the caster, subtract 1 from that enemy's bravery characteristic to the next hero phase. If the casting roll was an 8+, they suffer D3 from their bravery characteristics in the next turn, so no one's going to take that, and it doesn't matter. Unless you're running some sort of weird, janky flair list. Whatever.
Bravery never matters anymore.
It just doesn't matter at all, mate. Oh, Nathan, we've had a quick question in the chat from Dwarf Penguin, who did get us to 69. He says, Nathan, can you describe Lumineth Realm Lords, please?
The most stupid hats in all of the Realm Lords, of all the realms. They're just like, I guess it's because they live in the brightest of realms, so they need fucking hats. Maybe you get cancer from being in Heesh. So they got big hats to stop them getting Heesh cancer.
For the shade.
I think they're all probably constantly bitching about each other behind their backs. That's why they need the big hats, because they're just like, oh, stay in the shade. Like,
Also, loads of stupid arrows. Fuck.
Just to touch on that, I know that we're all probably on the same thing, but it really disappoints me how little battle shock is a thing these days. Just because there are so many abilities that ignore it for those who weren't aware. Like, there are so many great books that could have really interesting lists based around debuffing your opponent's bravery and then causing battle shock tests multiple times.
But we might see a change in 3.0.
We might. But it's like, but the thing is, you have Ossiarch Bone Reapers who just have a rule where their entire army ignores it.
There's only 12 of them, though.
Yeah. Only a handful. But anyway.
I mean, it's weird that ghosts get scared and run away, right? Like, it's a cool phase, but also, like, how do you balance it? Because the numbers are a bit off, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, how do you balance it versus your 10-man units versus your elite stuff? Like, you almost feel like your elite stuff almost always needs to be like at a 10 or 11. I'm talking like Varangard or like Evocators on Dracolines. You know, they need to be quite high so that there's some reward for really dropping their bravery down.
Yeah,
like, and it becomes an issue. And I mean, there is a reward for it anyway, but they're not. Like they're a major drama. I don't know, man. There's loads to unpack about the Battle Shock phase. We'll probably do a whole show on it. Like, let's do that. Dan.
And the one thing I would add as well is for those people who are like, yeah, but blah blahs don't get scared. I never have thought about battle shock and bravery as, oh, they get scared and run away. I know that's kind of what it most commonly is, but I like, say you've got your Stormcast and then a couple of Liberators bail. That could be two people getting a message to an army somewhere else, you know, being like, shit's going bad, we need to get help. Or like a Varangard guy who in the middle of the combat sees a chance to charge off and get a magical artifact or something. Like, it's not necessarily that they panic and flee. I know that's what it is, but like, if you want to talk about the narrative, a lot of people dash off of a battlefield for different reasons. So I just, yeah, it can be a lot of different little elements there.
Mm-hmm. That's true. All right. We'll fly through these. So prayers are really important, and there's some things to unpack about the prayers, which are some techie little bits. In the and something I got wrong yesterday. So in the rules for prayers is a priest in the Daughters of Khaine army can cast as many prayers as they know. However, a priest, on the priest war scroll, when we get to it, you'll see that they can only cast one of their war scrolls prayers, like, out of the options. So they have a couple of options of prayers they can cast, and they can only cast one of them. But they can cast one of them. They can cast a prayer to like wake up the avatar. They can also cast their prayer, which they pick from the prayers of the Khainite cult. So that's taken us up to 3 so far. And you can, of course, try to cast the prayer that is the judgment. One of the 3 endless spells. 2 of them are endless spells, and one of them is a judgment. So really, from one priest, you can cast or like 4 prayers. Avatars also give you
hell.
+1 to pray, so you can potentially do them on a 2+ to pray. So a lot of praying available here.
Do the avatars need to be awake for that, or is it just happens just if they're around?
Maybe Dan can check on the war scroll while I'm just like whipping through them. But yeah, Pete in the chat, me and him, we're all about that. I mean, it kind of makes sense. Pete makes a good point that some of these prayers, which are like wizards with no counterplay, are very strong because obviously you don't have to wait for your opponent to unbind it or anything. It's like 3 up or even a 2 up. I successfully cast this, and that's pretty good because you pay a premium for wizards in some cases, and some of these prayers are as good as a spell that you would want to take, right? So they're very viable, yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Some of the prayers are better than some of the war scroll spells that some people get. Definitely.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Dan, did you know that? Yeah. Or you just
Sorry,
checking?
which did you want to know?
The avatar, just the avatar. What range it needed to be for the +1. That was all. Sorry.
Wait,
you look it up, and I'll go through the prayers. The avatar of Khaine.
Yeah.
So the prayers that you've got access to are the Catechism of Murder, which is a pretty famous one, which is exploding 6s on a unit, and they're wholly within 14 inches. So it's pretty cool, pretty important on units that have a lot of attacks anyway. Witch Elves, Sisters of Slaughter, or even high quality attacks. That works quite well. So that's a really good prayer, and I think you're going to see that a lot. And then you've got Blessing of Khaine, which is a pretty famous one, Nath. I wonder how you feel about this. If the prayer is answered, pick a friendly Daughters of Khaine holding within 18 inches. Until your next hero phase, you can re-roll Fanatical Faith rolls.
yeah, so same as what it was before.
Same as what it was before, yeah.
That's pretty good because Hagnar still
answer-
got the. Sorry, Dan. The answer.
Just gonna say the answer's 6. Within 6 to get
Cheers, babe.
+1.
You're an angel.
Cool. Yeah. So I mean, Hagnar still got that 5 up.
They do still have the 5
Yeah.
up.
So yeah, that's still there then. But it's just 1 unit, isn't it, as well? The reroll. So yeah, but that's the one everybody wants to fight. So yeah, that makes it hard.
That does, yes. So yeah, so like Nate's talking about, you're going to be able to give. If you take Hagnar, you'll have a 5 up rerollable save on a unit that's wholly within 12 inches of the command traded general for Hagnar. So that's pretty good, and your opponent can't stop it. Also, cool little feature is you'll have an avatar right next to your witch who's giving out the 5 up. So it's all good, baby. It's a 2+. 2+ to be pretty tanky.
You can always roll a 1 though.
You can. Yeah, man. You can. That's important, right?
That's what you got to
1 in
hope
6
for.
chance.
Right, so then you got Martyr's Sacrifice, which is a unit holding within 14 inches of model until your next hero phase. Each time a model from that unit is slain by an attack made by a melee weapon, before the same model is removed from play, pick 1 enemy unit within 3 inches of the slain model and roll a dice. On a 5 up, they suffer a mortal wound. So you pick a Daughters of Khaine unit, and they get Martyr Sacrifice, and if you kill 1 on a 5 up, you're going to take a mortal wound. Right? Now, this gets... Oh, go on, Dan, after you.
Just gonna say all I'm hearing so far, which I'm pretty sure that anybody else who with half an ear has been hearing the same thing, sounds like hordes of witch elves are still the way to go.
Well, I mean, so don't forget the hordes of witch elves were expensive. Obviously. So there's a cool combo here, because you are able to make it so there's a command ability, so any 1s to hit a unit of, I think it's Sisters of Slaughter, are going to cause you a mortal wound. And then you can take Bladed Bucklers, so any 6s to save are going to cause you a mortal wound. And then if the model dies, or one of the models at the unit dies on a 5 up, you can take a mortal wound. Now that does require a command ability, a prayer, and that unit, so that you are doing 2 overlapping buffs on that unit, but there is quite a fun little combo that you can put a pretty scary combat unit anyway into the enemy, and as they hit you, you can kind of... So you've got some kind of good conversation with yourself there on the tabletop. You're like, actually, I'll let them hit me first, I'll activate somewhere else on the table, and then they'll maybe take some mortal wounds. I've still got that 5 up Fanatical Faith roll as well, so so because you do your armor save, and then you've got your 5 up, which is quite important on the Bladed Bucklers. So really, you kind of want to take the damage and then just allow that 5-up rerollable Fanatical Faith to work. So I think that's quite good. But yeah, they could smash quite nicely, I think. And that's a cool little prayer for that combo. And I think you might see that put into lists later on. But obviously, there's lots to unpack there. You got Crimson Rejuvenation. It's a pick a friendly Daughters of Khaine unit within 14 inch. Holy Within. There's loads of Holy Within with this, which is great, which is a massive change. And you can heal D3 wounds. Then you got Covenant and the Iron Heart. It's prayers answered. You pick a friendly Daughters of Khaine unit within 14 inches model. Till your next hero phase, do not take battle shot tests, which might genuinely be something you want to take, because there has been some pretty massive changes to Witch Brew. And then you got Sacrament of Blood, which is pick another Daughters of Khaine unit holding within 14 to your next hero phase, add 1 to the number of the current battle round and determine the abilities. So if you wanted to, you could potentially awake that avatar on like turn 2 or something like that, which is quite good, right?
Yeah.
So a good selection of unstoppable buffs. Have you got any thoughts on those initially?
Strong. They're strong.
Really strong.
Yeah. So, so the ones that can pray are the hags, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And they're I think they're really potent. And I think what's nice about them there is you get to choose between them, like what you really want. But obviously you're going to want Exploding Sixes, and you want Blessing of Khaine, and then maybe you want Martyr's Sacrifice as well. So there is a command trait or an artifact, I don't remember which one, where you can make it so you can have more the ability to pray more prayers as well. So you might be able to get 2 out of a single model, which is quite useful. How many points are hags now? Don't worry, we'll get to that in a moment. Nathan, how many points do you think hags are now?
I thought that was the end of this.
It is the end of it. All right, well, just let him guess for now. Don't tell him Twitch chat.
Hags. What were they before? 90 points, weren't they?
No, they've gone up to 100, right?
Were they? Okay.
I'm going to play this game.
So, it sounds like Witch Brew's got worse, but life is tough. Just the same. 100. Just 100.
Okay.
Same as they ever was. Yeah.
Okay. That's a good guess. Right, okay. So, I'm going to go through the sub-factions super quick. So Hagnar is you add number 1 to the current battle round, so your dudes are going to come alive on turn 2, which is quite useful. That's your global buff for Hagnar. Your command ability is you can pick use his command ability at the start of your movement phase. If you do so, you pick a friendly Hagnar Cauldron of Blood within 3 inches of the friendly Hagnar units that have 3 or more models wholly within 12 of that hero, and you add 3 inches to movement. So basically, you pick a cauldron. You have some dudes around, or ladies around it, sorry, and then you add 3 inches to their movement. And that's quite important because they're really fucking slow. I think it's 6 inches, might be 8 inches, I can't remember. So 6 or 8 inches, but they're slow. So that's a cool little command ability to make those models move a little bit faster, which they really do need, which is the cauldron, right? 6, thank you, Manda. So they're going to be going 9 inches. So you're going to probably see that used quite a bit because the cauldrons probably are going to get taken a lot because they're quite useful, depending on which build you take. And then the command trait is, of course, the Fanatical Faith roll, wholly within 12 inches. That 6-up DPR turns into a 5-up DPR. Pretty much the terror of 2018 Age of Sigmar and 2019 Age of Sigmar for a while.
And 2020. And probably 2021.
Yeah, doesn't say. Now, Rob, am I still right in believing that it's almost certainly going to be on a cauldron to maximize the size of that bubble?
Yes, of course. Yeah, of course. And that means also means that the hag on the cauldron gets the 5-up DPR as well. But it is wholly within, and that is something that is a massive change to what it once was, because it used to string the unit out. And you do have to remember, when we talk about Sinesh next week, we'll talk about the Shard Speaker and one of the really difficult things to do. And Nath's got some pretty good insights onto this, Nath, because a lot of the Gits book, or even some of the Dispossessed stuff, really relies on Holy Withins that are going to activate in the combat phase. I'm pretty certain the Loom Boss activates during the combat phase, right?
Yeah.
And is it Holy Within?
Yep, Holy Within 12 as well, yeah.
So my question to you is, how do you how do you manage a big brick? Like, so obviously 30 witches are all on 25s and then 60 grots. How do you manage a big brick of models that want to go off and charge somewhere, but you also want to buff them up and have a guy wholly within 6? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, that little loon boss has to sprint around with them. But the thing is, when a big block of grots charges into something, if they charge, if it's a long charge, then you have to leave a little tunnel so that he can charge in as well. But if not, the best way to do it is if you just make sure he's sprinting all the time, and he's in that unit, but then you've got to leave lanes so that he can sprint through the unit to get far enough up so that you can then move your grots around and charge, but still keep within the 12. It's a bit tricky, definitely a tricky thing.
Yeah.
Is the answer possibly just have a net?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. At the end of the day, the dudes that got nets love it when he's around.
Like, you don't being wholly within anything doesn't matter for squat if you possess a net.
So,
like a Gargant is absolutely not wholly within the range of a grot's net throw, but it's the net that keeps on netting. So
all day. There's a whole bunch of things I'd like to talk about. Warchebby, thank you so much for pointing out that it's not unit, it's model wholly within 5. So you can still do some chaining out, actually, which is quite important. But it depends on what damage you're going to be taking, ultimately. So model within 5 is actually, within 12 is actually really important. So thank you, Warchebby, in the chat. A couple of other things. Thank you to Mamdare for donating £6.69 to the show, which has ruined our number, but we appreciate the money loads. It's also great to see Mamdare, who is, of course, Dayton from Party of the All Points, a podcast you guys could listen to if you want to, and also Mr. Jacob Berry from the Rage of Sigmar podcast in the chat. It's a nice time, I think, to announce on the Honest Wargamer. Most of you guys do know that we're part of the Rage of Sigmar podcast network. That the Honest Wargamer has actually initiated a hostile takeover of the network as of today. Dan, I think you're actually the instigator of the takeover. Is that correct?
Oh God, what did I do?
You messaged us today. You said we should take over the Rage of Sigmar podcast network, which obviously includes the Dwellers Below, Party of the All Points. There's a whole bunch of podcasts in it.
Rob, I didn't mean like a hostile takeover. I meant like we should murder them slowly using poison. And then just sneak in and pick up whatever's left. No, this seems far too overt, and they might fight back. We want to be subtle. Don't worry, none of them can read, or so I don't think they understand how to use and listen to other podcasts, so they're unlikely to ever hear this.
Okay, wow. That's the podcast wars, they begin. Which is great. Big shout out to Velatron in the chat, who says, have the cauldron run first, then the unit charges, same as with Plague Monks and the Furnace. I agree with that as well. Pete says, note that it's models wholly within, not units, so you can have, say, 20 witches fighting and keep 10 wholly within to take some saves on, which is quite nice as well, because, I mean, it does mean you have to break up your saves, and so it's actually better than I thought it was yesterday. I thought it was the whole unit, but it does play better. Nathan's still better than the Gits.
Yeah, I mean... Yeah, having that models within is definitely, and especially for a defensive buff like this. I mean, the Gits one is an offensive one, so if it was the models, he'd still have to be up there and amongst it, because he wants to be buffing the guys that are in attacking position. But if it's a defensive buff like this, you can shield half of the unit that's sort of stuck behind, and then. Yeah, so you can still keep this your cauldron that's giving out the buff doesn't have to be that far up, really. That's nice and flexible for them.
I will agree with Grinaldi that I think that like it's annoying that there isn't a specific, like there isn't a rule of thumb. Like we're doing wholly within, end of. It's unit wholly within. Models wholly within. Is weird. Like it's a weird like in a 2021 Battletome is what I'm trying to say. Unless we see everything in the future go to models wholly within.
I have a question though.
Yeah, go for it.
Because we're a narrative show, right?
Yes, we are. We always are.
So narratively, the girls or the ladies at the back who aren't in the fight How are they taking hits to save?
How are they taking hits to save?
Yeah, because we're taking the saves on the ladies at the back because they're getting the bonuses.
Mm-hmm.
But how are they taking hits? Like, unless they're fighting Lumineth, who can just like prod everyone with those giant spears. Is it a dance?
So have you ever been in a mosh pit? You know when you circle pit?
Circle pit. Yeah.
That's basically how they fight. They just run. They kind of like dagger attack, and then they run around. So not shield wall Viking style. It's more like circling cavalry. That's how they battle.
Right.
So I think that's the narrative, but
the narrative, isn't it, is supposed to be that they just push up, so it doesn't really make sense narratively that they get the save if they're at the back. But
and as the Honest Wargamer, a narrative channel, we are livid that it doesn't narratively make any sense. So so that's Hagnar. So Hagnar still have a 5-up rerollable save. They've got an ability to make their cauldron go better and their battle round. The big change though is that they don't get to in battle round 3 reroll all their to hits. That's gone away now, so that has kind of reduced their output a little bit. Not loads, but a bit. And then they've got an artifact, but it's rubbish and no one cares. Right, so then next up is you've got Drychi Ganeth. I really like Drychi Ganeth. So you improve the range characteristic of melee weapons used by friendly Witch Elves and Sisters of Slaughter by 1. Obviously, that would combo super well if you ever got Mind Razor off, so you could have Rend 2, Damage 2. Or you could use it even on something like Heart Renders, so they would have Rend... it doesn't matter. That doesn't require this combination. You could just have Mind Razor in these, and that'd be Rend 2, Damage 2, which would be super powerful.
They just get +1 Rend.
They just get +1 Rend. Witch Elves and Drychi Ganeth just get +1 Rend.
They don't have to charge or anything. No, that's it. They just turn
up.
Oh,
no, they've got to charge if they charge.
Oh, if they charge. Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, I thought they just thought about it really hard. Come on, shop a dagger, shop a dagger, shop a dagger. Oh, it worked!
So they've got to charge.
They're just staring at their knives while running, and they're just like...
So these are the fat Witch Elves, because they run and they get their momentum behind the knife, and it just slides in.
Have you ever done knife drills? Like has anyone done any actual like knife martial arts training?
No.
Okay, so
we deal with our anger in responsible manners.
It's actually really valuable. Number one, if ever anyone, as some advice, if anyone ever pulls a knife on you, just run the fuck away. Having done weapons-based martial arts for 4 years and won a world championship in it, if I saw someone with a knife, I'd run the fuck away. Run the fuck away. Best advice I could ever give you. Second piece of advice, though, which is really interesting, is we had this like old Filipino guy come in. He used to practice Doce Paris, terrifying individual, like giggled as he tried and shank you. It's really funny. But like we would practice knife drills all day, right? And there's loads like disarms, like pataways, loads of stuff, mainly about footwork and trying to keep distance. And the thing is it's not anywhere near as scary as prison knifing. So you know when you watch the movies and they like turn their blade, I'll use my knife, they turn their blade like this, yeah? And they're like, and they do all that. If you ever watch a prison shanking, they just run at you with their arm, yeah? And they just stab you. like in the most childlike way you've ever seen. Anyway, that's the most effective way to stab people that I've seen on
I'm not sure we're supposed to talk about that on the show. I don't think we're licensed for that.
It's a war game. I'm not saying to do it.
I'm saying that bit out. I don't feel comfortable with it.
About this. I feel mildly threatened. But then again, we were just talking about trying to take over the Rage of Sigmar podcast network. So I guess, never mind.
I just thought you'd be interested in general, because you think knife techniques, because bow techniques, same thing. Because we thought for generations, like Dan, James, as elf players, you think all bows should have arrows in a quiver. Yeah? And if you've watched that weird Finnish guy who's super good at archery, turns out they always held their arrows in their hand when they were shooting.
Speed over style.
Speed over style. Yeah, speed.
But I just want to, because there's something you've touched on and moved away from very quickly, Rob, that I do just need to impact for a moment. And that's that you suggested that like when you're thinking about stabbing and how you would stab and that's not a thing that I have ever thought about, or prior to this conversation, I would assume would ever be something I would think about.
I just thought I'd bring it up because we were talking about, Nathan started talking about stabbing, and he was like, you need momentum. And I was like, well, interestingly, it's not even about momentum. It's just, like... Anyway, if anyone wants to research
I was
prison
just
shankings...
asking if that was their law. I didn't suggest that they knew how to stab people. I just thought
They
maybe
obviously
that
know
was...
how to stab people. This is a game where
Justification.
people have spears that are 8... Like, look at Illumineth with a spear, and you're like, right, I'll somehow weave between that and stab. They've got to be very confident with a knife. That's what I'm just trying to get... I'm just
asking if the witch elves from Dry Chickeneth are the fat ones, because they are the ones that get the rend on the charge.
I don't think that's okay to ask either. I don't think we should be talking about stabbing or weight. Anyway, we'll move on. I feel
Okay,
awkward
more
now.
substantial. Like, get momentum going. How do they get the extra
Where
rend?
on earth is this gone tonight?
I imagine
Ladies
this is
and
what
gentlemen, the most thorough book review you've heard of the new Daughters of Khaine book, right here on this
They
Wargamer.
get +1 rend on the charge. Why? Oh, doesn't say.
They run faster.
Because they do.
It says, forged in the arena of death pits, the Drychi Ganeth are among the most masterful warriors in the mortal... That's why.
Okay.
So,
They're the best warriors in the mortal realms. Is that what it says?
among the best, which includes, as I understand it, all the other warriors of the mortal realms. For some good hyperbole. Very much like this show is among the best review shows of Battletomes.
Absolutely.
In what realm?
All
all
of
realms.
this realm,
Okay.
Yeah.
In the autal realms.
No. Right. So, for God's sakes.
So back to the show.
How are we doing on this Battletome review, team?
Yeah, Twitch chat, how are we doing? Please let us know. Because, anyway, the command ability for these guys is... you can use
10?
What? 2 out of 10? Fuck you, Zerak. We're doing really well. God, I've got all warm now. If you spoke to my martial arts instructor, he'd make it make way more sense than I did. Anyway,
Is he still alive, or is he in prison learning how to knife?
I was about to say,
he's
when was the
alive.
last time
He's
you had
alive.
any form of contact with him? He might have been a little bit dodgy there, Rob.
Can I tell you? Can I go off piece to tell you a quick story about him because it's hilarious.
Yeah,
No,
let's do it. We've
staying-
committed this far. Let's
Staying
go the
on
whole
track.
hog.
On this show, we do
Okay.
not go on tangents.
Okay, so he taught a martial art called Eskrima Kalianis, which is a Filipino martial art, stick-based mainly, but weapons-based traditionally, and studied Dossi Paris. He was only like the only European grandmaster. Super scary dude, like 6'6", terrifying. Anyway, so we went to a car park, a underground car park with about 150 other people. Somewhere, like in Nottingham, I can't remember, like it was one of the sports stadiums, but it was in a car park, and a guy called Richard Bastillo, if you want to research him, who's one of the original students of Bruce Lee. So, super famous dude. He flew over and he was teaching like this whole car park full of people. There was like 150, 175 dudes, like ladies as well. There was loads of people. Anyway, so we were just doing trapping drills. It was pretty basic. You were really paying to say that you'd met a guy that had trained with Bruce Lee was really what you're paying for. Anyway, at one point, the lights went out. Yeah? Bosh. Yeah? And there was like some screaming and everything else. And then the lights went back on. Then, cut to my martial arts instructor who had his back against a wall, his arm around one of his own students, and a knife out in front of him. No idea where the knife came from. Definitely wasn't allowed to bring it with him. And it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. I was just there like, oh, it's dark. And then the lights came back on, and I was like, I mean, that is probably what I should have done, but I was not that prepared.
Well, I mean, I have some concerns.
Oh,
I
yeah?
think they start with the fact that his knee-jerk reaction was to grab one of his
A
students.
hostage.
like be like, oh, good, I've got one of these now. They're the people you are supposed to be training and teaching and protecting, and your knee-jerk was human meat shield.
I'm more worried that that's where
Such
Dan
a funny
went.
guy. Huh?
I'm more worried that that's where Dan went, and what he didn't kind of be concerned about is like, why he didn't just shank everyone? Like, he could have been the last man standing.
How come
Battle
you didn't
Royale.
yourself
Those
hostage,
lights going
Rob?
off could have been the
What's wrong
Battle
with you?
Royale moment of the Nottingham car park.
Oh, that guy's so funny. Oh god. Anyway, right, back to the book. Sorry, but it's so rare you get to tell that story. It's fucking brilliant. Anyway, right. So,
Wait, sorry. Before we move on to the book, can I just check in with the other members on this show? Rob's knife teacher was 100% a criminal, right?
he's like a regular guy.
Beyond 100%.
Yeah.
People in prison.
No, he's just a martial arts teacher. Like,
you know
what do
what
you
else-
expect from him?
Do you know what else I would like to say that I am 100% sure of?
What?
That martial arts teacher does not accept Bitcoin. Not trustworthy.
You didn't know how to use social media
Yes.
at all.
So the chat is agreeing that he is just a regular guy, just a regular criminal, who was like, yes, I'm a knife master.
Anyway, that was really funny. Big shout out to Richard Basillo. So, the command ability we have talked about. No, we haven't. So, the command ability is you pick a Witch Elf unit or a Sister of Slaughter unit from Draichi Ganeth. Yeah, that's important. Sister of Slaughter or a Witch Elf unit, and you add one to hit rolls for attacks made by melee weapons by that unit until the end of the phase. Has to be wholly within 12 inches of a hero. So that's pretty massive because you can be hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s quite easily with obviously Rend 1, or you could stack it up and obviously get it to Rend 2, damage 2, which is pretty potent, really, for that unit. So that's really cool. Command trait is add one to the bravery characteristic of Draichi Ganeth units wholly within 12 inches of the general, which is actually quite important probably for this army because it's going to probably struggle for bravery. And then you've got Artifact of Power, which is pick up or whatever. Then you've got Kraith. So Kraith have got at the end of the combat phase, you can roll a dice for each friendly Kraith Sister of Slaughter unit, and on a 5-up, that unit can fight for a second time, which would be quite cool, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Chonky.
Yeah. So that's quite good. Then the command ability is you can use this command ability in the combat phase. If you do so, pick a friendly Kraith Sister Slaughter unit and wholly within 12 inches of friendly Kraith hero. Add one to the wound rolls for attacks made by this unit. In that phase, the same unit can benefit. So +1 to wound, which I think is quite cool as well. I quite like the difference between like Draichi Ganeth and Kraith. And that you can really hone in on just playing Sister Slaughter. I think that's super cool. Like, and there's loads of buffs here for these guys. The command trait for Kraith is at the end of the combat phase, if the general's on the battlefield and an enemy unit was destroyed, attacks made by a friendly Kraith unit in that phase, you receive 1 command point, which is also brilliant as a command trait. And then the Artifact of Power is whatever. And then you've got Calibron, which is subtract 1 from the hit rolls made by missile weapons that target Calibron units. So -1 to hit against shooting, army-wide, which is amazing, right?
Yeah, pretty good at the moment. Seem to be loads of arrows and skulls and things flying around.
And also the lungs of a skink are the strongest thing in the world.
Those little bastards. Yeah.
Then you've got the command trait is you can use command ability at the end of your movement phase. If you do so, you pick a friendly Calibron unit wholly within 12 inches of a hero, and then you can basically teleport them and set them up again 9 inches away, but you cannot then move them. So you have to be wholly within 12, but it's a teleport as a command ability, which is pretty great. But as we're probably seeing from some of this stuff...
But that's done in the movement phase now, is it?
Yeah, at the end of your movement phase.
Yeah, so it used to be in the hero phase. Yeah, and then you'd swap them around using the other one, and then they could move and do their shenanigans. So that's all been stopped.
Yeah, no shenanigans anymore. But it's still a teleport, right?
Yeah, teleport's good. Especially if you need that, if you need a bubble, or it's good to get your hero. I mean, I think it's good to getting buff pieces to where you need them. And it sounds like you've got a fair few buff pieces. So going right back to that spell, the mirror dance spell, that was teleporting 2 wizards, wasn't there? Heroes.
2 heroes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, because it means you could teleport 2 heroes, and of course, you could teleport like another unit as well, which is quite a fun little thing. Then you've got the command trait, which is subtract 1 from the hit rolls for attacks by melee weapons that target this general, which is actually quite cool, really, because all of the towers aren't monsters, so they're also already getting lookouts So they're -2 to hit from shooting while they're in Calibron, and then they're -1 to hit in combat, which is pretty baller. Like, that's pretty good. Then you got the Artifact of Power, which is pick one of the berries, melee weapon, or whatever. The artifacts or whatever. Then you got Keltnar, a new one. Woohoo! Which is friendly Keltnar units can retreat and still charge later in the same turn. So the whole army retreat and charge, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, that's really
Oh
good.
my god.
Yeah, really, really good. Especially
Super
when don't forget Mind Razor works on charges.
That's where first place I went. I was like, Mind Razor, and we're gonna see that quite a lot, I think.
Yeah, but Mind Razor is gonna be again, Dan. It's like, don't think of Mind Razor as I'm definitely doing Mind Razor. It's like Mind Razor's the bonus. Yeah. Zip Zap Rap. Sorry, asks, why is retreat and still charge later in the same turn good? Nathan, you got any thoughts on this?
Well, it's just so flexible. If you go into something and it's holding you up, you can retreat and charge around it. If you're getting bonuses to charge, obviously, you retreat, you charge, you get your bonuses, so your Mind Razor bonus, etc. It means you can bounce off of units in front of you and go into the soft gooey stuff behind and onto objectives, into all the good stuff. If somebody puts somebody's going to put an anvil or some chaff up in front of them, you can go into that, and if you get the next turn, you can then retreat around it, and then just getting into back lines is really good in Age of Sigmar, and it's just a great mechanic for that. And if stuff can fly and do that, so. You got a couple of flying units in this, haven't you? The Canary, but also obviously that their Marathi god person can fly. So she is gonna love that. She can use this.
Yes,
she's not tied to one any of these.
No, she's not. No,
she's not Hagnar.
No.
Okay. Yeah, so Keltnar Marathi is going to be a right handful to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like Nathan said, like a good strategy sometimes is charging in and then retreating away, which is your full movement, and then an additional charge. You can also run with retreat and charge because you can add a d6 to it, which means that you can move more than your movement normally and still charge. So imagine
I'm not sure if you can run and charge though.
Can you not actually?
No, I think you still will only be able to move your normal retreat.
That's a good point.
A move. If there's a run involved, and if you don't have run and charge, then I would argue
you've retreated, but you've ran, but you can't run.
Unless you can run and charge.
Carry on.
Well, because a retreat
you can
move
retreat and charge as long as you walked when you retreated. But if you've run, you've got tired, so it doesn't matter that you've retreated. That doesn't power you up again. You just can't charge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the banners do give them run and charge. They're Grimslackers. So no, Nathan, you're right. Like mechanically, you can't add the d6. You can't charge.
Yeah.
So there's a good point there, unless that unit also has run and charge. So it's important. But the retreat and charge mechanic is super useful. Really, it's about moving and being in places, because sometimes you're going to want to be in places where like your opponent doesn't want you to be, and then you've got to add that bonus on. So it's a super strong thing, and especially as the Witch Elves and Sister Slaughter, they're also able to run and charge. So it's even cooler. So there's a lot of speed going from this army. So the command ability though for Keltnar is pick a friendly Keltnar unit holding than 12. Until your next hero phase, the unmodified hit roll for an attack made by a melee weapon that targets a Keltnar unit is a 1. The attacking unit suffers 1 mortal wound after all attacks have been resolved. So it's what I was talking to you about earlier, where so you attack a Keltnar unit on the command ability, reroll 1s, and then
sorry, this is a command ability, did you say?
This is command ability, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can any hit 1s to hit are going to cause a mortal wound. And I really like this into an OBR match, right? Because they don't want those mortal wounds, right? They don't have a command ability for reroll 1s to hit, so then you've got like the reroll 1s, the mortal wounds are on ones to hit. If you take bladed bucklers, they're going to be causing mortal wounds on 6s to save. And then also if you give them the prayer, so any that do die, you're going to end up on 5 up mortal wound. If one does die, and 5 up another mortal wound. So you've got kind of like a nice little like defensive piece in there, which is. Sorry, we're trying to be hostile takeover on Skype. There's a whole thing happening. I can't just don't worry about it.
What's going on?
Jacob Berry's being requested to put me in, coach. I can't do it.
Cool.
If there was another box, Jacob Berry, I'd put you in it, but I can't. So, so then you've got the command trait, which is once per battle at the end of your movement phases. Once per battle, the general can summon a flock of harpies. 5 models to your army. Set that unit up anywhere on the battlefield more than 9 inches away from the enemy. And then there's an artifact. And then the final one is Kai, Zentha Kai, so Cobra Kai, which is add on to the bravery characteristics. It's what we reviewed basically when we did the Marathi books. Command ability, blah 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 blah.
Thank God that they gave us more about Cobra Kai.
The best faction, Cobra Kai.
The best faction. Mm-hmm. Right, so I'm going to whip through the battalions super quick, and then we'll just be straight onto the war scrolls, which is super cool. So Cauldron Guard is 1 Hag Queen, 2 units of Witch Elves, 2 units of Life Takers. Add 1 to the run and charge rolls for units in this battalion, which is pretty great. It's a Hag Queen, 2 units of Witch Elves, they're great, and the Life Takers are also great as well. You can add 1 to run and charge for units in this battalion. You got the Slaughter Troop, which is Slaughter Queen, 2 units of Sister Slaughter, and 2 units of Heart Renders. Units from this battalion can retreat and still shoot and/or charge later in the same turn, which again is another great. Sister Slaughter really good. You can put them in Hagnar or what Drychi Ganeth or whatever you want. Sister Slaughter really positive there, and again a Slaughter Queen. That's harder though because she's on foot. And then they got the Shadow Patrol, which is 2 units of Doomfire Warlocks, 2 units of Harpies. Genuinely might take this because it's quite fun. In your movement phase, instead of making a normal move, a unit from the battalion can say that it will navigate the shadow paths, and you can basically set it up in Deep Strike, so that's quite fun. But I'm kind of liking Doomfires at the minute, so we'll talk more about that later. Shout out to Jacob Berry, who loves Doomfires as well. Then you've got the Scath Coven, which we've talked about before, the Viperic Guard and the Shrine Brood, which are all the ones that we saw from the Marathi book. So, and then some quick ones before we talk about the War Scrolls, super quick.
Hang on, sorry. Did they copy and paste the battalions from the Marathi book?
Yeah.
Into this Battletome?
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
So they've made 1 new one, 2 copy and pastes.
No, they've made 1 new temple, no new battalions. Oh no, Shadow Patrol might be a new battalion. I don't think it is. I don't think it's new. They made no battalion. Yeah, they basically said "Wholly Within" on like 3 sentences, and then like just been like,
okay, that's good. I
let's
like
go, boys.
I like a FAQ.
Okay. Why do you want an FAQ on? There's nothing wrong.
That is an FAQ. This is what this book is. Carry
Oh,
on.
you think the book is an FAQ?
Well, basically. That works.
They did lose Temple Nest. Thank you, Dwarf Penguin. So they didn't. Yeah, I know. You had it for 3 whole months. All right. So a couple of things. So the Heart of Fury is their endless prayer. Which is their endless prayer, and this is quite important. This is, let me just get this right. So this is the locus of the murder god. Subtract 1 from the damage inflicted to a minimum of 1 by each successful attack that targets a Daughter of Khaine unit wholly within 12 inches model. So if you throw this in front of your army on turn 1 and run around it, you're reducing your damage by 1 to a minimum of 1. So obviously useless against things like Plague Monks, but really good against War-chanted pigs. Yeah? So a big positive. So if you want to increase the survivability of your army, but it is 80 points. So, yeah, pretty rough. I got asked this question by Dayton yesterday, you 3. What do you, would you think to include this in your army?
80 points is a lot.
Okay, I guess the question is, it's less than a trog herd, right? So the question needs to be, is this worth more to me than a trog herd?
Yeah.
Never.
What's it
Nothing's
cast
worth
on?
more
So
than the
it's
Trogger.
not cast on anything because this is an invocation, so it's a 3+. Yeah.
Oh, in which case, then I would actually say
And it
yes.
does go, and don't forget, it's also going to go away like an invocation at the end of a turn. So on a 1 to 3, it's going to go away. On a 4, 5, 6, it'll stay. There is a way to add +1 to that.
But unless you've got an avatar within 6, in which case it's staying around on a 3-up, and it's probably going to be near a cauldron. Honestly, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it. Yeah, I think so. I think you're going to see a lot of like defensive play using it.
Okay, a lot of people in the chat. Twitch chat, what do you think? Nathan, what do you think?
Yeah, it probably not my style of play because I mean, if you're playing a castle or a big, something like a castle, then yeah, it's good. I always, when I think of playing, if I ever thought, like, if any of the elves tickle me fancy, it would actually be the Daughters of Khaine. And but I would always try and play them MSU. And I don't think that would suit that style. So I personally wouldn't use it, but I think it's worth taking. Definitely. I think a lot of the style that where people do play them in big supporting blocks, then yeah, it's probably worth taking.
I think it also depends, doesn't it? If you're playing that thing we were talking about earlier, where you basically want them to die and just keep reaping out mortal wounds, then you're never going to want it.
Yeah, it does.
But if you, it depends which one you're playing, doesn't it? I guess.
I think you're also so landlocked already to the towers if you're playing the tower-based version of this. And there's a great conversation that you run MSU and some other stuff. And I think like it's honestly a very interesting army. They've done really well. What do you guys think of the sub factions? Because I think they've really like explored how to play the army quite well through the sub factions. Also, special shout out to WapWap92 in the chat because it's her birthday today.
Happy
birthday!
Yeah, she's 35, so she's really excited about that. So happy birthday to her!
Congratulations!
What do you think of these sub factions?
I think the sub factions are great. I think they're all. I think Hagnar's maybe still the strongest if you're looking for at it competitively wise, but I think they're all. I think they're all playable, really, and I think I think you could take the same list and try it in all different ones, and you probably have a bit of fun. I think it's good. I think they're great. Yeah,
okay,
I like them.
Okay, yeah, all right. So good. Dan, you got any thoughts on the sub factions?
I just from hearing them, they're more interesting than they were, which. Like for me, they were really quite dull previously. I was like, okay, it's effectively just either Calebron or Hagnar. It's not that it's not still just those, but it sounds like there's some more interesting play. We'll still see them most common, but there's more interesting play in there, which I'm kind of excited to see. And we might see some more variety, which again, yeah, only a good thing. I like it. It sounds more keyed into like building on their lore as well, rather than just being like, these are the ones that don't die. These are the ones that do this. So yeah, I like it. I think it's cool.
I actually, there's some points in the chat which are Dwarf Penguins like Calibron and Hagnar are still really good. I agree with that absolutely. You know, a lot of the temples are very cool. Like they've used the sub factions to make the lists varied. Although they seem to focus a lot on witch elves and Sister Slaughter ultimately. However, like they've used the sub factions to change how you play the army, and I think that's brilliant, right? Like if you don't play Hagnar, you've got very slow towers, very slow towers. That command ability is only available to them, and I think I would love to see this in more books. I'm the first to be rough on Games Workshop when they don't do a good enough job for us, but I'll be the first to praise them with this book. Like, because I think that they've, like, very much like we saw with Tzeentch and Seraphon and Cities of Sigmar, like, they've used the sub-factions to make the game more interesting for us. Like, you have a collection of Daughters of Khaine, you get to play it in different ways because of this book, and that's brilliant. That's what the sub-factions should do. Like, there's the conversation about power levels and whether or not they should be pointed, because I've always said that I think the sub-factions should be pointed, because they're pretty crazy global buffs, like, in some cases, where if you compare it to Slaanesh is just terrible. So she's just like, you've got 3 generals, but they can't be near each other. You're like, fuck, what? Like, it's like, and the other one's like, you +1 to run, and you're like, oh wow, this is rubbish. Like,
Well, who doesn't want to be a little bit faster?
yeah, I know, but like they don't really change how the army plays in any way, shape, or form. And I think that this has done a really great job on it. And I'm just going to say congratulations to Games Workshop. Great job, well done. Like, that's an excellent thing to see here, and I think that that's really good. Because like we can do both things. We can say well done and not well done. All right, so let's bang on, shall we? Marathi hasn't changed apart from her Heartrender stabby spear is 1 rend less. So James, for a little while it was rend 2 and now it's rend 1. Got any feelings on that?
Little Marathi or big Marathi?
A big Marathi, sorry, Snake Marathi.
So, did she lose weight over the last 3 months?
Nathan, you can't ask a lady that.
How is that giant spear rend 1?
How was Slayer of Kings rend 1?
It's the same. It's got the same
Because it's
armor
wielded
potential.
by a puss.
Fucking hell, Nathan! How many beers have you had today? Zip Zap Rap's got a
Fucking
good point.
Archeon is fucking... Jim.
Thank you to Jacob Berry for donating 5,000 bits to the show, trying to buy his way on right now. Thank you so much, Jacob. That's lovely of you.
You should drop him on as we all come off.
That's what I'll do. I'll just be like, thanks everyone, and we'll just have Jacob on. I don't know what time. I think it's late there now, but a massive love to Jacob Berry. So yeah, Marathi, most importantly, if you guys have never listened before, Marathi, and you went through all of the knife crime earlier, and you got here, you're like, I've never listened to these guys, this is fun. Marathi has a command ability, which allows a unit wholly within 24 inches of little baby Marathi to, of course, attack or shoot in the hero phase, which is pretty strong, and also, of course, can't die, which is pretty unique. Pretty unique. And pretty strong, and is 600 points. I think we're going to see Marathi.
And has a rend 1 spear that's bigger than most people.
A Skink Star Priest has got a rend 1 spear also.
Yeah, exactly. Dumb, but carry on.
Are you really upset by this?
He sounds really upset by this.
I don't know about really upset. I just sometimes I just think there's moments where like as a narrative show, we should highlight the fact that the giant spear should probably do more rend than 1. Maybe it's not pointy. Maybe I feel like everyone that has one should blunt the end.
It's actually a hammerhead on the end of a spear, but she doesn't know.
Yeah, I also Meatballs. I agree. She's now a god. Doesn't hit as hard.
Yeah, she's given up. She's stopped. Like sometimes when you get promoted, you stop working as hard because you're like, yeah, well, I've made it now. I feel like maybe that's the issue.
Do you reckon she's just like, oh, I can chill.
Yeah.
Oh, I've missed an arm day.
Yeah.
She delegates it
sharpened
to
a
those
spear.
praise people.
Like, I've got nothing left to prove.
Kadred says she's lost her edge. Now she's got what she wanted. And also, Gursey points out that the skink on top of a Troglodon has a short stick with rend 1, and the Troglodon itself lacks rend. So we're not really sure what rend means, if we're honest, James. I don't think any of us. We kind of armor penetration from 40k is like okay, but like, what does rend? I'm going to Google it. Let's go find out what this means. Rend. Rend, according to the English dictionary, is tear something into pieces. Which kind of makes sense, because a spear doesn't tear, it more stabs. Not to bring stabbing back into the conversation, but
or pierce. So like to pierce would be more of a spears game.
Yeah, snapping teeth.
Honestly, this book is just an FAQ. It's like, oh, she had too much rend. Drop it 1. No one will notice it's a new book.
Yeah.
They didn't count on you, did they, James?
No, apparently not.
All right, so let's. Dan, could you take us through the war scroll, please, for the for the witch? The hag.
It would be my absolute pleasure. On the cauldron or just Nudie Rudy by herself?
Nudie Rudy, please be Judy. Thank you to Jacob Berry for also donating another 500 bits. Jacob,
Rob, I think you do need to address this.
What is he saying?
No, I'm just saying, like, I think you, like, clearly you've got your aggressor has caught wind of your cunning plan. So I think you have to talk to him about this takeover.
He said, "Fuck you, ignore this. Attention, daddies," is what he said with his donation. And then he said also, "Fuck you, this is all I have." It was his follow-up. I don't know. It's the most aggressive really donation. It's the most aggressive donation ever. Like going down to the Salvation Army, just throwing clothes at them. Take this. Just take this.
All my clothes. Taking his clothes off and throwing.
Yeah, just stripping naked and being like, "Are you not entertained?"
Great film.
Okay, so Hag Queen, Nudie Rudy on foot, not riding on a thingy jiggy. 5 wounds and a 5-up save. Given that she's not wearing any reasonable amount of armor, that still makes complete sense. Movement 6, pretty standard. Bravery 8. Now, when we come to it, she's got the Blade of Khaine, 4 attacks at range 1, 3s to hit, 3s to wound, rend 1, so as powerful with her little stabby blade as Marathi's spear, and damage 1. Good stuff. Good. It's good that they're all sharpening at the same thing. She's a priestess, so she can pray. Roll a dice. On a 1, cops a mortal wound. On a 2, nothing happens. On a 3, you get it. The 2 prayers she knows off by heart. 1 gives the D3 damage instead of 1 to her sword, meaning that her sword, unless I miss my guess, becomes as good as Marathi's stabby spear.
She's flat 3, but it's close enough.
Sorry, yeah, pretty much the same. You'd roll a 3. You'd just roll a 3. The other one is Touch of Death. If you do it, pick an enemy unit within 3 inches of the model, take a dice and hide it in one of your hands. If your opponent picks the wrong hand holding the dice, the enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. Wait. If they pick if the one holding the, if they pick the dice, that's just stupid. It's 50-50. Effectively it's a 4-up D3 mortal wounds, except it's a mind game with your opponent.
Mm-hmm. Which is kind of fun.
Just I dig it. My favoriteest thing is when Nagash's Touch of Death, and people are like, it's a 4-up. I'll just roll a dice. I'm like, no, you put it in your hand. This is the game. I want to see, like, I'm going to be looking at your hands, looking at your eyes. Do you have a tell? So I kind of like that.
Just a quick note. I spoke about this yesterday, but I was watching like a French Warhammer channel where they do battle reports. The other day, and they've got a spinny wheel. You know, like a.
Yeah.
I have no idea what it was like, because as far as I understand, there is no Age of Sigmar rule that requires spinny wheel. But like, I was like,
you obviously don't know the rules well enough, then.
Yeah, that's probably the issue.
Have you never used the spinny wheel in Warhammer Age of Sigmar? It was added in 1.4.
Yeah, it's. Oh
it's
no,
like,
you know what it is, James.
What terrain Triumph. Is in effect?
Rob's always banging on about how he hates triumphs, and that's what it is. It's ding. And Witch Brew, this is satisfying due to Witch Brew. At the start of your hero phase, pick a friendly Daughters of Khaine unit wholly within 12 inches of this model to drink the brew. If you do so, roll a dice, adding 1 to the roll for each of the following abilities that this model has gained: Headlong Fury, Zealot's Rage, Slaughterer's Strength. On a 5-up, you can reroll wound rolls for attacks made by melee weapons. On a 5-up, in addition, on a 5-up, you don't take battle shock tests for the unit until your next hero phase.
Yeah,
molto bene.
Yeah. So some big changes there. Like that's the other kind of key change really to the book. Reroll wounds. The only reason quickly I brought up the wheel thing was because I was like, that's what they should do instead of Hand of Dust. Because how fun would that be if you had a really creepy wheel and you were like, Hand of Dust, and they were like, do the hand thing. It was like, what if instead? And then from under the table they brought up, I spun the wheel. There's no way you're not going to spin the wheel, right?
You know what? I'm going to put together a Nagash army just for that. That's what I'm going to do now. And then my opponent goes like, come on. Brrr, and like one side says big money and the other side says lose it all. So you're like, come on, big money.
Can I just, instead of having it under the table though, can you have it like in your car in the car park? So when it happens, you're like, just go to the bar, give me 5 minutes, and you have to like run out to the car, wheel the thing in. It's all solid steel, weighs a ton.
Really heavy.
I absolutely really want to do this now. I'm very excited to do it.
Actually, do you know what? No one's thought about this at all. What if you had like just two boxes? You know, like just two different boxes they open, and then one of them, like maybe have them both be Jack in the boxes. So like one of them with a skull, like you lose or something, it jumps out really aggressively, and then maybe another one that's like party poppers, like yay, you're not dead, like.
Or a shell game, you know, like you're like, here's the P, then you put two shells down and like move them around, and then your opponent has to pick the shell.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
No one's trying to make this more fun. Like that's the problem, and that's why we're the narrative channel for ages.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So yeah, effectively for those who might not know the difference in Witch Brew, it used to suck if you were playing against Daughters of Khaine, and if you were playing Daughters of Khaine, you pretty much went to bed at night with romantic dreams of how good Witch Brew was, because it just automatically worked. It gave you rerolls to everything you wanted to reroll, and it made you ignore Battle Shock.
Yes, but now you only get to reroll to wound, and you
on a
and then you may on a 5-up you ignore Battle Shock. So CP is going to be so much more important to the Daughters of Khaine army, because they're going to want to use that CP from immune to Battle Shock, and their bravery isn't great. At the end of the day, they can reroll their failed Battle Shock test that includes Standard Bearers on Witch Elves and also on Sisters of Slaughter. So it's quite important. That loss is pretty key, actually, like knowing you're immune to Battle Shock to making sure you use it. But again, in some of the stronger, maybe sub-factions, if you were, let's say, running Hagnar, you know, your character in general is going to be very close to that unit that's going to be tanky anyway, so maybe you got the CP. But the army is going to be more CP starved, and it's pushed into a meta which is going to have a lot of Lumineth armies who are going to use these spells, so they have to spend 2 CP if they want to make something immune to Battle Shock. So it could genuinely be an issue for this army, like, in the future, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. I think it's going to be something that it's going to change the play style, which I think is good. Witch Brew was boring. It was dull, and you saw it every single time exactly the same way. So, yeah, it's only going to be a good thing.
Yeah, So big changes. Nathan, you got any thoughts on the changes?
No, it seems. I mean, it's got a bit worse, but it's not really that much worse. You still get all the pluses, and you get +1 for it being near an avatar as well.
Yes.
To the yeah. I mean, still good.
Still good. So this is our first time, Nathan. You said 100 points, yeah, for the
Oh yeah.
It's the Hag Queen, right? You said 100 points. Our survey says 90 points.
Oi.
Well, Witch Brew got worse.
Witch Brew got worse. You didn't know that. So that maybe would have changed your mind. I'm going to talk next about. We talked about Marathi, 600 points. Let's talk about Dan. Should we talk about the Hag Queen on Cauldron?
Yeah, That's give me 2 seconds to pull up that stabby little queen. Hag Queen. Wait. 2 seconds here.
We're doing great. Twitch chat, I hope you're doing well. We're doing quite well. We're going in here. What's happening?
Do you get the Hag Queen on Cauldron, or is it the Slaughter Queen on
Slaughter
Cauldron?
Queen, sorry. Slaughter Queen on Cauldron. Is what it is. I've got it. So it's not a drams. So 13 wounds on a 5-up save, but as previously mentioned, they move 6, which is kind of important. Then you've got some.
Which I think 6 is pretty generous, if I may, because there's nothing pulling it.
It's magic.
Like the fact that it still manages to roll on its own with nothing going on. That's pretty damn impressive, given that there's a big obsidian statue and another smaller obsidian statue holding a gigantic metal cauldron.
Yes, of course.
They're not wearing many clothes, though, so they don't weigh a lot.
Ah, that's true, yeah.
So I'm just going to quickly talk about the Avatar on Khaine on foot really quickly, just to bash this out. Is the Altar of Khaine ability that gives the +1 to Daughters of Khaine priests while they're wholly within 9 inches of a friendly Avatar of Khaine with this. And you add one to the bravery characteristic of friendly Daughters of Khaine while they're holding in 12 inches of an Avatar as well. 4 attacks in close combat, 3/3s, Rend 2, 3 damage on an Avatar of Khaine.
Nice.
Yeah, really
Stronger than Marathi.
Not strong. I mean, Rend
Stronger
2.
than a god.
On turn 3 is automatically. So yeah, pretty good. So sorry about that. The Slaughter Queen on Cauldron. The Cauldron most importantly gives the Blood Shield, which is +1 to armor saves for Daughters of Khaine wholly within the range, and it starts as an 18-inch bubble and gets worse as it gets wounded down to 14, and then I think pretty certain it goes down to 14. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, 14, then 10, then 6.
14,
Yes.
10, yeah.
You also are allowed to cast to awaken the Avatar, if you want, who is on top of the Cauldron as well. And then you've got the command ability, which is you pick a friendly Daughters of Khaine unit that has not fought at that phase, and is wholly within 12 inches of this model, and within 3 inches of enemy units, that unit can fight. Now that's in the hero phase. Now what's important to note is, because of the wording, because they didn't quite remember, is that the wording is if a unit has not fought that phase. So if you want to, you could use the command ability from this, which is the Orgy of Slaughter, and you could fight in the hero phase, and then you can use Marathi's fight in the hero phase. Because they've worded it. They've worded it wrong. So if they both
to be fair, if those zombie dragon bat dudes can fight like 19 times, these can fight as many as they want.
That's good equivalence. That's good equivalence, James.
Yeah.
Just putting that out there.
Yeah, so that command ability is pretty important. Because, I mean, you can even do it to itself, fight twice, but there's going to be some CP wanted to be spent from this army. So you could have your 30 Witch Elves, you could pile in, attack in your combat phase, and then if you get the priority roll, in the next hero phase, if you're locked in combat, you could activate twice with that unit, which is pretty strong. But the important point there is, if you do that, some of the big buffs that this army gets are going to go away. Charging is pretty important to the army, both for Mind Razor and also for some of the some of the sub factions. So actually, it sounds terrifying, but like you do lose a lot of your output there. Although you do get to fight twice, so it's pretty good.
They probably won't have as many command points as well, will they?
No, they won't.
They'll also be spending them a lot more regularly too.
Yeah. You're right. They're going to be very CP starved as a faction. I really do think, but you might see them engage quite gently, turns 1 or 2, and then later on like get a little bit more involved, which I think is.
It's always important to use lube. Oh, what?
All right, okay. So Nathan, the Hag Queen on Cauldron. Not forgetting she can give all the buffs. She's got 13 wounds with a 5-up save, but obviously that's a 4-up because it's in range of its own blood shield. It's got the Avatar on Khaine on top, who's pretty baller in a fight. Even got a shooting attack, which has got Rend. How many points do you feel the Slaughter Queen on Cauldron of Blood should run in at?
So she can do prayers as well. So she's like the Hag, which was 90. So I don't know. It's pretty tasty. I don't know. Let's say
so. +1 to save. +1 to save in a bubble like a turtle.
Yeah.
Do all the prayers. Command ability to fight twice. 13 wounds with a 4-up save.
I'm gonna say 200 and well, I mean it's I would say it's equivalent to maybe like an Arachnarok with a shaman on it, maybe something like that. So 260, 280, somewhere there.
Wow, James, you got any thoughts on how many points this is?
I was like at 360.
Really? Well, Nathan nailed it. Between 260 and 280, it's 270. Congratulations,
Holy
Nathan.
crap,
You
go.
win a prize.
Oh.
Yeah, good job. That's very impressive. Very, very impressive indeed. Okay, all right. Let's see if I can bamboozle you a little bit more.
270.
270. All right, I'm going to
yeah, it's a steal for that, really, isn't it? But yeah,
Really good.
Yeah.
Especially as like you almost have to include it, right? The blood shield, like so when you take the bladed bucklers or whatever you do, so you're basically your infantry are on a 5-up save because they're taking shields, and so they're on a 5-up save. So now you take this and they're on a 4-up save. So you're putting it in your army all the fucking time, and it's got the prayers that make your dudes or dudettes, even better in a fight. So it's brilliant.
And plus, your little heroes on foot are still quite squishy, whereas you put them on top of this thing and they're almost impossible to kill.
Yeah. So, and as Grunhauser says, it got better and it's cheaper. So, yeah.
Do we know how much it was before?
What? It's cheaper than it was before.
Yeah, cheaper than it was before.
It is actually cheaper than a Ragnarok, by the way.
Good, because that's we all know that is the watermark with which all others must be measured to.
So it's 330 before.
Jesus.
Wow, it's dropped loads.
It has dropped loads.
It's all right. There'll be an FAQ soon.
Why is it?
What will there be an FAQ about?
They'll reduce the base size by 4 mil.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to try
wait. Sorry. Before I go on, do you own one of these, Nathan?
They won't reduce the base size. They'll just call it a different base size to what it actually is.
But do you own a cauldron?
I don't mind if they change the size, as long as they can tell you what the fucking size is. But then they tell you the size that it is, and it's not the right size that they're saying. It's just like if I went for the kitchen and somebody said to me, I want this size, and then I bought a different size and says, oh, but don't worry, I'll just call it that size that you wanted. That's bullshit. Fucking idiots.
Oh, it was worth it. That was just worth it.
It was worth it. So you get lost in your own analogy about the kitchen. Right. You were halfway and you were like, I should have said wall or anything else other than kitchen. It's gone really wrong for me.
No, like, if they ask for a 1,000 base unit and I bought 1,010 or 20 or something, and then they said, well, that's not the size. And I said, no, it's a 1,000 base unit. You just have to accept it. It's not what it is.
So talking about battle carts, Owen makes a good point. So the Hurricaneum rocking in at 2... Is the Hurricaneum 270? Can't be 270, is it?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's more with the wizard on top.
Yeah. Well, the guys in the chat can check. But like, there's some comparison there. But then another comparison, obviously, is the Taurolon by Velatron, which, I mean... was aggressively overpointed since release, and has been the same ever. But yeah, a good comparison would be the Hurricaneum. Hurricaneum maybe got more utility across the board, but this is pretty integral to how the army plays, which I think is fun.
But Hurricaneum is a lot less survivable.
320 as well.
Okay, so with a battle mage it's 320. All right. Okay. I mean, and this is basically a wizard because it's not got. Let's talk about the wizard version. So the Blood Rack Shrine. So this has got the Medusa on top. 13 wounds, again, 5-up save. Yeah, it doesn't have the blood shield, so it's not going to plus any saves. So if you are including it in your army, it's going to need that. Otherwise, it's got a 5-up save. It's not a monster or a behemoth. Or it's not a monster at least, so it's going to get lookout, so as is the Avatar, as is the last one that we just talked about, will get lookout sirs from shooting. So that's quite key. Which is weird, but whatever. It's got whatever. It's got the Aura of Agony, which is at the start of your hero phase you can roll 1 dice for each enemy within 7 inches. If the roll is equal to and the greater than the Aura of Agony value showed, which starts on a 2+, they suffer D3 mortal wounds, so that's quite cool. A little AoE buff mortal wound piece. They've got the Blood Rack Stare, which obviously we know, 12-inch range. Don't forget they move 6, so it's quite limited range. So 12-inch stare, and for every... you pick a unit, don't you? And for every model that's in that unit, you roll a 5-up, and they suffer a mortal wound. So that's what you do. Which is quite good if you can get into the right fight or in the right situation. You can burn hordes quite nicely. It's even nice into elite stuff. Ultimately, you could pump out quite a lot of mortal wounds if you double that up with the Aura of Agony.
You know what that's great against though?
Yeah.
Nets.
Nets.
Doesn't care.
Doesn't care about nets.
It's just like you get into combat and it's like, you can't touch me. And then she's like, yeah, but I can look at you. And they're like, oh my God, we forgot to net her eyes. And then they all turn to stone.
You need a really fine net to net her eyes. That's the problem.
Really thin net. Yeah,
Even
but
grot hands aren't that small.
but if you do manage to net her eyes, it's going to turn to stone when she looks at it, and then she's got a stone mask, and you're safe.
Yeah, you are. Right. So she's a wizard as well. That Blood Rat Medusa who's on top, and you've got like a couple of witch elves. So like she's got a spear that does D3 damage at Ren 1, and you do impact hits on a 2-up. It suffers D3 mortal wounds. So pretty good like little piece. Can do some damage as well. There's also
So it casts one spell and unbinds 2.
Yeah, I just saw
weird.
that.
It's not common, but it's not uncommon. That can happen sometimes. Sometimes you get cast 2, unbind 1.
She's almost as good as an enchantress on Unicorn, but not quite.
Thanks, James.
Let's just start share that.
That's for all you Bretonian fanboys back in.
She's in Legends now, but she's still happening.
She still exists.
Yeah. Right, so the spell that is on the Blood Rat Shrine is a great spell. It's Enfeebling Foe, cast on a 5, pick an enemy unit within 18 inches and not wholly within, subtract 1 from the wound rolls for attacks by melee weapons by that unit as well, which is a great spell. Really good spell. So, Wizard does mortal wounds, can run around and do damage, can do mortal wounds going in. Nathan, time to play the game. James, I'd like your guess as well. How many points is the Blood Rat Shrine?
So, wait a second. It's 13 wounds with a 5-up save.
Yeah.
So, okay, so it's not got as good a save as an Ragnarok. It casts less spells, but it unbinds more spells? Weird. It's better in a fight, I would say, definitely. And it's got that ranged attack, which is really decent. So, I mean, it's probably about as good as an Ragnarok dude, but they'll make it cheaper because it's an elf. So let's say 240.
Good guess, James.
40 points cheaper than the Ragnarok. Yeah.
250.
Ooh, it's close to 250, but you take 90 points off and it's 160.
What?
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 Is that for the character?
No, that's the whole thing.
Hang
160
on, how much is the character on her own?
That's
how much is the character?
So-
The Medusa on her own, if you want to spoil the game for later, is it's not my. I didn't write the points. Don't leave me alone. Blood Rat Medusa is 100 points.
And hang on, how much is the whole shrine?
160 points.
Why would you ever take her on foot?
Well, you
What?
wouldn't.
But
You also can't buy her on foot. You have to buy her with the shrine. So they're really doing you a favour.
But so wait, no.
That's the
Hog,
same
just-
points as it's cheaper than a Man Crusher Gargant and the same points as an Ale Guzzler.
It's-
Agreed. Yeah.
It's like that's like a 5-wound foot hero in most other armies.
That's amazing.
Oh.
I almost want to play this. Hang on, is it a behemoth?
No.
No, she's not a behemoth. Oh no, hold on.
No?
She's a behemoth. Yeah, she is a
Is
behemoth.
she?
Yeah.
So you can
It's
take
not,
four.
it's not in the keywords.
Can I check something?
She doesn't have the monster.
Is she gonna have Lookout Sir then?
Yeah, she
Too
gets
many
lookout,
wounds.
sir. It's
Too
a
many
monster.
wounds.
No, it's monster that doesn't get lookout, sir. You're thinking 40k. She
Wow.
gets lookout, sir.
Oh, amazing. Someone just build an army of them because, I mean,
Well, you can only
still...
take 4.
Well, you take 4 though, don't you? And then you still have room for like anyone else's normal army.
It's true. It's true. So that's pretty good. So
As
fun,
someone
fun, fun.
Rabid Bunny in the chat pointing out, same points as Zarbag's gets.
Cheaper than the Trogherd.
Actually, let's
Man.
let's make that the game just for the next couple of minutes. We'll move on to whatever the next thing we are to talk about. But in the chat, put down the weakest unit you can think of for the same point.
Well,
Are strong there.
Ale
right?
Guzzler Gargant.
Yeah, yeah.
Nate, they've both got a 5-up save.
Yeah. Exactly.
Zarbag's Gits are sold out, so they're definitely a buy if you've or sell if you've got.
Oh,
Yeah.
let's talk about sold out units. This is fun. I'm kind of jumping around because there's some point stuff, but like this will be a fun one to do. Let's talk about Doomfire Warlocks. Not seen all the time, which is a bit of a shame, but let's talk about the Doomfire Warlock War Scroll, because it's lots to unpack here. Super fun. Cavalry unit with only a 5-up save, 2 wounds
I
each.
got some of them in a box somewhere. Do I need to go find them?
No, don't worry. Don't worry. Too pricey. Too pricey.
You've let the game slide away there a little bit.
Yeah. So 2 wounds each on a 5-up save. Okay. Don't forget you can Blood Cauldron them though. So they're going to end up on a 4-up save. 14-inch move. And they're bravery 6. They're not super brave. Now, they've got an okay profile if you actually think about it. They've got a crossbow, which is 2 attacks at 12-inch range, so 26-inch threat range. It's 4s and 3s, which is quite nice. No rend and 1 damage. But that's nice, like just random shooting, okay? A unit of 5, these will come in, so you get 5. So you get 10 shots, which is kind of good. And then you've got their cursed scimitars, which again are pretty good. They are 1-inch range, but they're 2 attacks, 4s, 3s, rend 1 damage, and then they've got the horse, which is 2 attacks, 4s, no rend 1 damage. So you are getting 4 melee attacks out of this unit, 2 of them with rend, and 2 shooting attacks out of the unit with no rend. So quite cool.
So 5 of them are doing 6 attacks each, so 30 attacks basically.
30 attacks out of 5 dudes. 30 attacks out of 5 dudes. And they move 14 inches. Okay, you can add, but they're also a wizard. It's the important point to note, right? And you can, which they always have been. So you can add one to the casting and unbinding rolls for this unit while it has 5 or more models. So it doesn't matter how many more you have now, but you get to add one to +1. So if you do have 5, you're going to add +1 to casting and unbind, and they can attempt to cast 1 spell, and they can attack to, obviously they can unbind a spell as well. But the only spell they can cast is Doomfire, so it's locked in. You could only cast Doomfire, and it's cast on a 6, but they get +1 if they've got 5 or more, so a 5, so quite reliable. If successfully cast, pick one enemy unit within 12 inches of the caster, and it is visible to it. If the casting unit has fewer than 5 models, the enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. If the casting unit has between 5 and 9 models, it suffers D6 mortal wounds. And if the casting unit has 10 models, flat 6 mortal wounds. I'm pretty certain. I don't know if you had 2 units of these, if you cast Doomfire twice, probably not.
Why can't you? So you can't pick out spells from the spell lore.
No, you cannot.
They can only cast Arcane Bolt, Mystic Shield, and Doomfire. So if you had 2 units, one unit could cast Doomfire, and the other unit could, I don't know, piss away their turn.
Yeah, basically. So anyway, so like we said, so if you went for the max 10, you would be able to cast on a 5. You would be able to cast a flat 6 mortal wound spell, which is quite nice. And again, that would be 10 dudes would be 20 wounds with a 5-up save. You would be getting 20 bow shots. You could stick them around a cauldron. They'd end up on a 4-up armor save. They've also got Fanatical Faith, so if you stuck them in Hagnar, they could have a 4-up, 5-up. And of course, you could give it so that they have a re-roll on the Fanatical Faith roll as well. So you could make them very tanky if you wanted to, if you didn't want to use them as a skirmish or anything. And of course, if you wanted to, or if you got the opportunity to, you could, of course, put Mind Razor on them. So they would have some pretty scary, like their Cursed Scimitar would go up to 2 attacks apiece, hitting on 4s. You could maybe get them to re-roll 1s. Wound on 3s, rend 2, damage 2 coming out of those guys. So it'd be pretty decent. You could cast another spell. Thanks, Pete. I didn't know you could cast another spell. Yeah, you can cast an ender spell because they're a wizard. So you can cast an ender spell out of them as well. Appreciate that. That's super cool. Doomfire Warlocks. What do we think about Doomfire Warlocks? They're pretty good. They're unique. They're wizards. How many points? Dan, James, Nathan.
Well, I mean, after the other one, fuck knows.
I'm gonna go. I picked out one that was like over the top. That's my fault.
They're gonna drop the ball on this one. I think it's going to be 100.
No. What? It's gotta be. I don't know what to say. I mean, the other one was 13 wounds. Also, was 13 wounds. This is 10 wounds. So
10 wounds with a 5-up.
I'll just say it's the same, but I mean, it should be worth more than. It should be 200, but let's say 160 then.
160.
How many?
Yeah. Wait. So no. You said 160. James, 160. What are you thinking? Got a bid? Oh, you've muted yourself, brother.
I was talking. I'm going to go for 190.
190.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well, they're actually 240
Ah.
for 10. They're 120 for 5.
Oh, for 10. Okay, right.
What?
Are they the cheapest wizards in the game?
No, they're a cheaper wizard. Skink
Did you
Priest,
say
come
they're
on.
120?
120 points, yeah.
For 10 wounds of wizard on cavalry.
Well, so like Battletone said in the chat, like when we talked about that flat 6 mortal wounds, then you are going to need 10. So that's 2 fours. Significant-ish investment, I guess. Like, but you also get a pretty nice skirmish
No,
unit.
it's the enemy unit that has to be 10, isn't it?
No, if the
caster.
casting unit.
Okay.
Yeah. Lucky you can buy them in 20s. Good point is what you can do. You can buy them in 20s. So you can take loads of these dudes, who are the only dudes in the army. So yeah, 120 points is a maze, is all I'm going to say. Hey, Carwin! Oh, big shout out to Carwin over on YouTube. Lovely fella. Super lovely to see you in the chat. So yeah, amazing. 120 points. Pretty wild in comparison to some of the other units you see out there. I mean, just having a wizard that is 10 wounds. But it's a 5-up save, bravery 6. But they're cheap as shit.
I mean, that 6 mortal wounds is what the old thunder. What was the thing called again? Thunder Tusk. The stupid beast crawl thing.
Not the Frostlord. I know what I mean.
Not the stone horn, the thunder tusk. Yeah,
Thunder
thunder
tusk.
tusk. That's the right word. I said it right the first time. Yeah, they used to do the 6 mortal wounds. So yeah, these guys are great.
These guys are great. They do have to cast it though, and but they do get a +1, which
Yeah,
is
it's not a 2-up. It's on a 5 on 2 dice, which is like 2 and a 3. So yeah.
You guys all seem really depressed by this. They are aggressively pointed. I wish I was doing side to sides versus the SNES book, because you guys are fucking cry laugh. But anyway, so yeah, an amazing unit, and I think we're going to see loads of these guys like in play. When you do look at their war scroll and then you see them, you think skirmish unit, but already my mind's racing to what are bricks of these around a blood shielded Hagnar cauldron like. You know, like
just pummel them forward. I guess the only downside is, isn't it?
With next to cogs as well.
But you're losing
next to
that
cogs
spell.
because it's a wizard. Fuck. That's a great play, Nathan. For it rerollable.
But you're only casting that spell once.
How do you mean?
Well, so you can only cast Doomfire or whatever once per turn.
Doomfire, yeah. Once per turn, yeah.
So you could take loads, but they lose that 6 flat damage. I mean, they're scary anyway.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're 5 of these is the price of only 20 skinks. So
I love what Nathan just suggested. That's a fucking great big brain play. Like, so yeah, because they're a wizard, you can manipulate cogs. So you could take 20, stick them around a Hagnar cauldron. They'd have a 4-up. And then you could obviously bang them with Fanatical Faith. So you could have a 4-up rerollable armor save, and then a 5-up rerollable Fanatical Faith save. Whew. It's fun. That's fun.
So
that would cost you 480
exciting.
points, though, Dan. That would cost you 480 points. It's half your army, man. Like,
Not a quarter of your army.
Oh yeah,
that's a
maths.
quarter.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate you. Anyway, but they, even if they do lose one model out of that unit, 5 to 9 models, they're still doing D6 mortal wounds. That's still nice. I'll still take that. That's pretty fun.
They're fine.
Anyway,
They're
so little
fine.
blocks. You might see blocks of 5 of these. Do you know what? They might not even make it in the army.
Yeah, but still, they are good. I mean, the price is crazy, so yeah.
Yeah.
it's worth taking 5
It's kind
just
of
for
absurd.
the cost, the speed, and the D3 damage.
Yeah.
Huh? Oh, and an MSU army, they're great. I mean,
They're
they're
D6 damage until they lose one as well.
Yes. So there's some questions in the chat about casting and then the spell, because it says they can only cast Arcane Bolt, Mystic Shield, and Doomfire spells. Like, they can only cast. Like,
But
you
it says
can't
there's a
cast.
spell, doesn't it?
What?
To cast any spells other than Arcane Bolt, Mystic Shield, blah blah blah. So wouldn't the wording be that it's an endless spell, not a spell?
There's some clarity needed as to whether or not. I think endless spells are spells. Like, I know that's weird. Anyway, it could all be clearer. But the guys in the chat will have a row about it, and we can talk about it another day. All right, so Doomfire Warlocks, super fun. Let's just fly over very quickly to some other units that obviously are the most important because they're ones people own already, which are Witch Elves. 1 wound each, 6-up save. If you take the shield, they're going to have a 5-up save. Obviously, you could get them up to a 4-up save as well. They've got that 6-up save. Add 1 to wound rolls made for attacks with melee weapons by this unit while within 12 inches of a friendly Daughters of Khaine hero. So they only wound on 4s, so they wound on 3s. Don't forget we could use our Witch Brew so that we can have them re-roll those as well. They hit on 3s though, which is quite nice. And they have lost an attack, basically, which is the kind of takeaway from these. So they've got 2 attacks each, 3s, 4s, no rend, 1 damage. So that's the kind of the big takeaway. They have run and charge though. So run and charge, movement 6, bravery 7, and then yes. Or if you took 2 pairs of knives and you decided you didn't want the armor save for the +1, you could add an extra attack. So you would have 3 attacks apiece. So, there's some buffs you can overlap with them. Obviously, if you do get Mind Razor off on them, really good, but they're not quite the Blender Lords that they used to be, right?
Oh, they're still pretty tasty.
I was about to say, like, they've maybe gone down a peg, but they were already pretty high, so they're still fine.
Yeah. There's, they're 4+, 5++ is Phoenix Guard stats. I agree with that. They're really, really good. They're super solid. I'll just fire off the points because there's no point bandying words about them. They're 100 points for Sister Slaughter. Sister Slaughter. No, Witch Elves, 100 points. 100 points each for 10 Lunatics, which is super cheap because you maybe compare them to Mortek Guard.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. But the Mortek Guard can reroll their own saves. They're a bit more tanky. Mortek Guard have rend. In fact, that's probably not very fair. And if you just look at their War Scroll, it's a bit rough, right? Like 1 wound, 5-up save. But run and charge is super nice. You can maybe use these ladies as like little like fire away units. Pretty good screen. So yeah, it's Mortek Guard's probably a bad example of what to compare them to. But 100 points, pretty good for 10.
And they're not on the struggle bus at all there, are they?
No. That's at least an option there. Brick of 30 as well. Stick it around a cauldron like we've talked about before. It's only 300 points in the cauldron. That's 570 for a pretty scary brick. And you still got 3/4 of an army. Marathi, add that in. You've still got, that's 1100 points, and you still got a good 800 points to build some stuff around. So yeah, Nathan, you think 100 points is fine? Bit cheap?
Yeah, I guess if you look at the War Scroll, it's okay for the War Scroll. It's just the support pieces are seeming to be fairly inexpensive.
When we do the show next week, this is what will amaze you. That this book is so well integrated. Like there's so many it's such a book you can play because it gives you options. Be holy within this. Do this spell. Do a prayer. Like you can bring loads of you can cook. You're a chef. Yeah, you're just cooking away. You're making stuff happen. It's what you are. Whereas the Snesh book is none of that. There are no buffs. There's nothing overlapping each other. It's just here's your War Scroll, and maybe you can re-roll a charge. It's just it's night and day. And I guess it's that interesting bit where you can kind of take that synergy apart. It's a bit like how the Gits book works, Nate, but it's just more expensive, right? You do have buffs, and you have to play them, which is quite fun, right?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, the nice thing about this is it seems like the keywords all work on each other, so it's great. Yeah.
And I mean, you could make these crazy because you can stick them in Direct Chicken F, give them Rend straight away on the charge, Mind Razor Rend 2. You could, and if you wanted to, you could take pair of Sacrificial Knives. So you could build the non-defensive build here. You could have 30 Witch Elves with 3 attacks each, with 90 attacks, re-roll into wound, Rend 2, damage 2. Like, you could literally blend the fucking...
For
like, you could,
300, well, for 300 points plus some buffs.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, they'll fall over to a paper bag. They've got no survivability in that. I mean, or they'd have a 5-up if they were near the tower. But it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Pretty good. Anyway.
Oh, no,
whatever. Oh, no, I was just going to say, like, when you could put together what you can put together with them, like, it doesn't really matter.
It's glass cannon, though, right? Like, they're wearing no armor. They should just run forward and blend things, and if they get hit, fall over. Like, that's how the army should work.
That's only if you're in... No, that's if you're not in Hagnar. So the army does work that way. If you like, that's what's weird about the book and weird about the new iteration of the book, is because you're absolutely right, James. Like, if you play... I feel like if you play Draichi Ganeth, Daughters of Khaine, you're playing exactly how it works in your brain. Yeah, you're like, cool. Like, I don't have that fight, like the additional +1 to the Fanatical Faith roll. I get extra rend if I charge. Like, I'm going to try and get off Mind Razor. Like, I am going to blend stuff, but I'm going to die pretty horrifically back. Like, it works, and it's cheap. You can throw... I mean, you could throw hordes of Witch Elves at these people. You could have 2 towers. What are they? 274, like 580 for... So you can have 2 towers and 90 Witch Elves, and it's only going to run you 1480 points.
So, sorry, we were talking about the towers, and I said that it was the Slaughter Queen. You do get the Slaughter Queen, but then you also get the Hag Queen on the tower. So she doesn't come with that command ability, but
no,
she's got everything else.
No.
But how many points is she then?
Oh, the Hag Queen on the Cauldron. Give me a second. Hag Queen on the Cauldron is 220.
Hang on, how much was the Slaughter Queen on it?
270.
270. But the Hag Queen, that's... I mean, so you're missing out on the command ability, but you're probably not going to have many command
juice
points.
To everyone.
Yeah.
You're not going to have the command points, but you still get all the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You get the Blood Shield, the Idol, and the Prayers.
Yeah.
220. Bloody
You're
hell.
never going to see Marathi again.
This is just wrinkling my brain.
They're cheap.
Have you found, Dan?
Hmm.
Have you found a new elf army?
No.
We know you like elves.
Oh.
I'd like to never have to think about this again. Well, I mean, I won't lie. It's interesting for the army because there are some changes. But the more I'm hearing, the more I'm not really hearing any change to the playstyle or any other options of playstyle.
I like that comparison. So Proposition J, 220 points is Horticulus Slimelux.
Oh my god. He's brilliant, by the way. Like, no word of a lie. I want everyone to know this. Like, if they do the new Nurgle book and every single one of the units and points is trash, other than they give Horticulus Slimelux like an 80-point war scroll and all he does is summon trees, I'm in. Like, I'll never say a bad word about Games Workshop again in my life. I'll be like, plant a tree, plant another tree. What are you doing? I'm like, I'm gardening. They're like, you've lost like 2 turns ago. I was like, shut up. I'm just going to keep planting trees, running around with my
This is my
snail.
game, not yours.
What if they don't let him plant trees, but they bring out like a range of allotment style buildings that he can put down instead?
I'm in. I love a good allotment. Yeah.
Like some cabbages? He could have some cabbages.
I wish there was some sort of army that like was remotely fun to play that would put trees everywhere. Like that's why I'm so excited about Horticulus, because there just isn't one. Like, I can't think of a single army that would be good putting trees down at all. Right, so Sister Slaughter, they've got that 6-up save. They've got Bladed Bucklers, which not only add +1 to the save, but you'll take a mortal wound if you make a roll, if you make a save roll of a 6 against your opponent, which is cool. So they'll take mortal wounds in return. They've got 2 attacks with the Barbed Whips, which hit on 3s, wound on 4s, and their rend nothing, and their damage 1. And then the Sacrificial Knife is 3s, 4s, no rend. They've got the good pile in. So they've got run and charge, movement 6, and they've got the good pile in. So pile in from 6 inches and you add 3 inches to that. So you can pile in 6 inches if you're outside of
Right.
6 inches, which means you can retreat and still charge back in, which is kind of like a massive combo that people would do all the time. But it wouldn't count as a charge. So the Sisters of Slaughter are a really unique war scroll, and I actually love this. A criticism directed at this is that it doesn't work, right? If you wanted to go Draichi Ganeth, you want to use the ability to pile out of combat, well, retreat out of combat, then pile in, your opponent can't hit you. You want to use that, right, all the time, as much as you can, which means you don't get the bonus from Mind Razor. It means you don't get the bonus Rend from Draichi Ganeth because you haven't charged. But I like that because, like, I lose something for something positive. Like, or I'm charging and then I get a bonus. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a good, like, I lose something. Like, I can see how there's a conversation that they don't synergize, but I actually see it as they counter work each other. Like, I've got 2 bonuses, loads of damage, or like some more utility. Like, and then I reduce my damage. I think that's pretty fucking baller.
Cost benefit, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really good. Yeah, really, really good. You got any thoughts on Sisters, Nath?
No, they're pretty good. So they come with the 3 attacks. So they come with so they come with a barbed whip and a knife, or a barbed whip and the buckler. So that you choose between the knife and the the buckler. So again, attack or defense. But I think the buckler is the way forward, isn't it?
Yeah. I think buckler's the way
always.
forward. Yeah, +1 save, I think is the right way. And these ladies, Sisters of Slaughter, do you want to take a bet? 100 points for the Witch Elves.
Well, these are probably more because of the 6-inch piling.
Mm-hmm.
So 120.
Nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. You've smashed it there. Quick one. Morgweath the Bloodied, who is the Warcry Warband. She's a hag queen with some ablative wounds. I have checked, Dan. Her war scroll was updated in the book, actually. So she's a hag queen, but with more wounds. How many points is she?
Less. I reckon less.
Correct.
12.
A regular
What?
hag point. A regular hag point is a hag queen is 90, and Morgweath is 80. So that's a nice little bonus there.
But do you have to take her with the warband?
Yeah, they're free.
What?
Yeah, they're free. You get the whole thing. You get
At
Morgweath.
80 points?
Yeah, for 80 points.
They've obviously got a few of her in the warehouse that need to be sold.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a cool model. Like, I'm fine with it. That's fine.
Does she have, because I looked on the web store. Have they updated her rules to match the new Witch Brew?
Yeah.
They have?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And also,
Cool.
she's on a bigger base than a normal hag. And do you want to know a super cool feature? She
course
is
I
a
do.
model in a unit of 3 models. So I think the unit automatically gives her lookout, sir. Which is a fun little side bit. I think, but I'm not certain.
I don't think she's deployed in the other unit.
Yeah,
No,
they're
she
separate,
just comes
aren't
with
they?
them, right?
So they'll be separate, like Zarbag and his kits, but only she's half the price of Zarbag and his kits.
That's amazing. That's the best bit. Forget the rest. She's cheaper than a hag queen. Doesn't matter. She's half the price of Zarbag. Does Zarbag have a net in his?
Yes, he does.
Oh, that's
actually.
why.
does.
That's why though. That's why he's so
Yeah.
expensive. Sorry.
Yeah.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Right.
No,
So
it's worth every point.
Oh, is she only Hagnar?
yeah, she's only hag now.
Nothing else. So you couldn't.
I
use
mean,
her in
it's
anything
really
else?
like I'm again really pro how much they've given the sub faction some real strengths on what you're going to take. Is it going to be Calibron? Is it going to be Hagnar? But it's going to be very hard for players to move away from Hagnar. A 5-up, just a 5-up DPR in a big bubble is really important. And then being able, and also don't forget they've got that command ability for the plus movement on the Cauldron, which is maybe going to be pretty important as well, depending on how slow and or fast the army is. I think it's going to be quite tough for players to move away from what Hagnar gives you. You might see others, and maybe people will tell me that like it's good. Like with Sire, I was pretty certain everyone was going to take Sire, and generally Sire lists are the list that you take, right? But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'll try not to be so definitive on my thoughts. So we'll just talk about heart renders real quick. 14-inch move, a wound each, 6-up save, bravery 7. They've got their heart piercer shield, which is obviously the same as we see for Slaughter, so +1 save. So they've got a 5-up save, and when you do, when they do make a save roll of a 6, they do a mortal wound back. They have fire and flight, which of course is a 12-inch it's the ability that once they've shot at something, you can roll a dice on a 4+. It can make a normal move, and these guys are so good because they deploy off the board, so they're in deep strike, or they could be deep struck if you wanted to. They land. It's a unit of 5. They could do a shot each, which is 3s and 3s, rend 1, damage 1, and then they've got an attack each, 4s and 4s, rend 1. They've all got rend, damage 1. Then they can pile into. I mean, it's only an attack each and a shot each, so it's 2 attacks over the whole model ultimately. And yeah, they can deep strike. They can also run and still shoot as well. So if for some reason you don't want to deploy them on board, 14-inch move, run, and charge. What do you guys think of this? Points wise, what would you pay for a deep striking unit that can shoot, move after it's shot on a 4-up, and grab an objective? These guys won 1 billion games for Daughters of Khaine players, just to point it out.
Yeah, they were also always dumb cheap.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, so without the data on how many games that they won, it is hard to point being able to set up, deploy, shoot, move again on a 4-up, and basically pinch objectives at the end of the battle. So there's no way to track that. I would say that this unit in value is, honestly, I as good as it is, I'd still say it's only worth about 110, because it is still a 6-up save from shooting with 1 wound a model for 5 model unit. So I would say 110 because they're shooting. Excuse me, and I would say 110.
110. James?
120.
Nathan?
I think it's quite a hard one to price. I'm going to just say 100.
Okay. Well, so you can take them in units of 20, yeah? And they're 160.
Oh.
For 10. So they're 80
they used
for
to be
5.
like
Oh,
90
wait, for
points.
10. Sorry,
They're 80
sorry.
for 5.
You're being a
You trash monkey of a man.
You're such a dick.
So what, they're 80 points for
5.
You're
5?
kidding.
Yeah.
For the shooters, for the ones that, because I could understand the combat ones being cheaper because they drop down their 9 away, you can't guarantee a charge, so they could be standing there just being like, hey guys, and get messed up. The ones that shoot, they drop down there at rend to, piss off.
So 80 points for a deep striking unit. It does have to come in by turn 3, otherwise it's destroyed. And it's got 1 shooting attack. But really, it's that fire and flight ability that you're paying for. And I would pay 80 points for that ability forever. All I want to do is put 5... Gary, don't worry, I'm getting to this. But let's talk about the Life Takers, because this is actually super fun. Right? So again, 14-inch move. They got a wound each, 6-up save. They've got the shield, so 5-up armor save. And of course, a 6 is a mortal wound. They've got, each time this unit fights, you can roll a dice. After all of its attacks have been resolved, on a 4+, this unit can make a retreat move of 6 inches. That's actually massive if you think about that in the game. Yeah, that's actually really good.
Grim.
Yeah, it's good.
That is
it's
grim.
Good. It's good. Something super, engage.
They drop down, they charge you, they do some damage, they leg it, they take an objective.
Or that you hit a screen, yeah, and then just fly back over your own screen. Because they move 6 inches. So that's cool. They've got run. Have they got run and charge? I thought they did. Maybe they don't have run and charge. These guys don't have run and charge. So they've got add on to the damage characteristics of this unit's barbed sickles and improve the rend characteristics of that weapon by 1 if this unit made a charge move in the same turn. So +1 damage and +1 rend on the charge. They've also got, obviously, deep strike. Ooh, baby. So they've got 2 attacks each that hit on 3s. They wound on 4s, but obviously you can reroll them. No rend, 1 damage. But if they charge, it's 2 attacks each. Hit on 3s, wound on 4s. Rend 1, damage 2. Now, what if I was to put a good old bit of Mind Razor on them? That would be 2 attacks, hitting on 3s. Rerolling the 4-up to wound. Rend 3, damage 3. That would require 1 spell. And that's it. And that, in total, is for 80 points for that unit of 5.
Yeah.
Great.
And you can take- Go on.
What's the max? What's max size?
Max is a 20, brother.
Interesting.
Someone's back in chat.
Yeah. Jacob! Love you forever. Yes. So pretty good. Same as the Prime. That's exactly right. Same as the guy with the Galma Raz himself.
With more
Sigmar's
attacks.
weapon. Huh?
Like, with more attacks.
Yeah.
More maneuverability.
Mm-hmm. Now that's only damage 3 if you do get off Mind Razor. Otherwise,
The
it's
spell,
only Rend 1 damage 2. So the same damage profile as a Gargant. But you would have a lot more attacks. 20 of them would cost you 320 points, but you would end up with 40 attacks. Rend 1 damage 2 is pretty good. Pretty good. And, yeah, you're right. It's a 5-up armor save. But, again, if they're in Hagnar, it could be if they're near the Cauldron, it's a 4-up. If they're in Hagnar, it could be a 5-up rerollable.
Yeah, and they don't have to be on the board either. So.
And they do not have to be on the board either. So that's pretty scary, ultimately, I think. And you don't get the Dry Chicken Death bonus on Canary. I know that, Planchette. You just get the +1 Rend and the +1 damage. On the charge, which is... So these ladies, might genuinely see play. They're terrifying. They're really scary. And because that movement 14 buff as well, I mean, they're movement 14, they can just stay camped. They don't have to be aggressive. They can, you could have a more tanky front line. Like we talked about, you could have super cheap, I don't know, Doomfire Warlocks as your screen, and then you could fly over the top with Life Takers and just punch people, which would be super good. Zarek says, I see them as a cruise missile. Keep them in the back lines until you get Mind Razor off and then fly them forward. They also get reroll 1's charge in the Battalion, and they get +1, which is also good as well. Or you could play them in the Retreat and Charge Temple, as Haken is saying in the chat, which is also good. They're pretty strong. And it gives an option to the book.
Did we say how many points there were?
80 points for 5.
Same. Okay.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, they're pretty good. I think the other ones still maybe better, but these guys are interesting, aren't they?
Yeah. They're very good, right?
Loads of Heart Renders are already going to be in the world. I imagine there's not that many Life Takers.
Yeah, but imagine you Mind Razor 20. We're going for a stupid example, but let's just say you Mind Razor 20, you charge, they all smash a bunch of stuff, yeah, and you roll a 4-up and you just move away. Because you could quite comfortably charge. Let's say you had Witch Elves or something. Let's say you charge with the Life Takers, you charge in the Witch Elves, but you just tag one model in basically, and basically what you do is you move the screen forward, yeah, or whatever, and then you charge, you activate, you murder everything, you roll a 4-up, you're just flying back over your screen. It's terrifying. I think they'll see play. I really will. Oh, nice. Fun fact, the Cauldrons have Witch Elves keywords, so they get the bonus Rend from Charge from Drychi Ganeth. I didn't know that. That's a bonus. So I think that's pretty much everything. The Snakes pretty much remain the same. The Archers still do mortal wounds. They haven't come down in price. Blood Sisters are 130. Blood Stalkers are 140, which is still very aggressively pointed for 2 wound models. 10 wounds for 130 points that can shoot well. And then 140 points for 10 wounds that can shoot well as well. You could obviously stick those around a Cauldron and they'll end up with a 4-up save, which is a pretty good. There's not as many buffs going on from the temples for the Snakes, which I think is a key piece. I just want to shout out my man Colonel Cabbage. Oh, some of the battalions, by the way. Cauldron Guards 120, Slaughter Troopers 130, so they're very cheap. Just want to shout out my man Colonel Cabbage. Let me just go and get this list. He wrote a list for me, and I just wanted to read it out because I think it's quite a good one. I just want to see what you guys think right now. Hold on for me. So, 30 Witch Elves, 10 Witch Elves, a Hag Queen, and a Slaughter Queen on Cauldron, Morgweath, and 2 units of 5 Kinrian Kinari, your choice. And then also don't forget the Shadow Stonkers are in here from the Warcry Warband. They're still in here. Yeah. So what would you guys make of that list?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Sounds tough.
Yeah. Well, actually, interestingly, that's only 1,400 points. So you can still add
Marathi and a
Marathi
load
in
of
there.
other stuff.
Yeah, that gets you 70 witches, a tower, a hag, or 2 hags, a tower, and then 2 units of Canary and the Shadow Stalkers. So pretty good. You guys got any feelings or thoughts about the whole thing overall? We did a good job there. I'm proud of that.
Yeah, they're cheap as chips, aren't they? No wonder
Yeah.
they got fat and they got that extra rend.
Twitch chat, you got any thoughts? James, you got any feelings on it?
Do you know, like, I think it seems the only thing I can think from like sitting here and talking about it is it seems cheap, but I also think it seems like it'll be a laugh of a book. It gives a load of options, and I think hopefully it'll be exciting to see what people bring to a table.
They're gonna bring murder.
A
Murder.
lot of murder.
I think that probably will see a lot less Marathis now.
You think?
Because
I
I
don't
don't
think
know
so
where
at
you
all.
take a Marathi at 600 points or whatever she is.
You can afford her, and all
Yeah,
of
but
that
I
stuff
could have
is just
3 more
said.
shrines.
Yeah.
Almost 3 more shrines. Yeah. You could.
Prime time for shrine time.
Yeah. Yeah, Dan, you got any feels on these?
Look, you know what? There are some really good changes to it that I dig. Like there's some bits and pieces in there that make me very happy. Unfortunately, do I think the play style changed at all? No. Like I think we'll.
I don't necessarily. No. You have your opinion. Go on. So sorry.
Well, no, I just
Substitute.
think like it'll still be for me. It'll still be looking at like running forward and stabbing, and finding new and exciting ways to run forward and stab. It's just more of the same that we already had. So this for me is it's a really nice slight like rounding of the edges that were maybe sharp. But it hasn't really changed a crazy amount for me. What I'm excited for are the changes to the temples. That's going to be the coolest change, I think.
Okay. Nathan, you got any feels? Apart from cheap?
Yeah, they're just super cheap. I think they will be up there again. Yeah, we're going to see some different temples, maybe. Maybe they're not as survivable as they were, but there's probably going to be more of them anyway, so it doesn't matter. And they do have one of the most survivable pieces in the game anyway, in Marathi. So
Actually, indestructible, yeah.
yeah, so yeah, I think Daughters of Khaine players have got to be pretty happy with the state of affairs. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I actually think... Go on.
No?
Sorry, you
It's
carry
a
on.
good book for them. Probably not so good for people that be playing against them. But hey ho.
I agree. I think that there's loads to unpack from the book, and Dan, I just push back on your idea that like it plays more of the same because like I do vibe with that. Like I hear you, but the lists were already changing quite drastically because of the Marathi book. We were seeing a lot of snakes and bow snakes being teleported across the board. We're seeing more Calibron than we ever saw. We're seeing Hagnar. I make this point all the time, or I made it a lot yesterday, is that when the book first came out, it was a Horde army. It was a Horde book, like, and they've just dropped everything back down to those prices, which I think is quite interesting. And then they've polished up some of like the Holy Withins and nothing else. But I agree with you that I think that the temples make it interesting, but really the key change has to be that immune to battle shock, because they've given themselves a whole bunch of abilities that are important based on CP. Like Marathi, who you pretty much would probably put in every list always, has got that CP that she wants to spend every hero phase if she's got the opportunity, right, to be in combat. You've got CP for immune to battle shock, and bravery I think is going to be a massive issue for this book, because yeah, you can have all those like those ladies, but like that's a lot of units that could get tagged, and they've got okay bravery, but you do enough. I think that there could genuinely be some issues, and there's enough shooting out there that they could genuinely be in a real spot of problem. So I think CP is going to be a major issue, and I think we're going to see that. I also think that they're not. I mean, they're fast. I'm not taking anything away from them, but they're not really fast.
They're not eels.
No, they're not. They're like, and So, and they have a teleport in one faction, but that makes them less survivable. So, what's that situation? And I think that's quite interesting. So I think CP is going to be an issue. As much as we talk about Mind Razor all show, consequential. You're going to probably get it off less than you get it off. Like, you get it off. You're probably not going to get it off very much. I say get it off way too many times. Just thinking about kissing it.
Trying to get it off, are you?
Yeah, I think like one
witches.
of the change to Mind Razor and the change to Witch Brew for me are two of the best and most interesting, because they're going to change the way people have to plan and play like their armies, and I really like that. It's not just because I remember the Daughters of Khaine hero phase used to be a series of almost guaranteed buffs that they knew they were getting. And for me, when I played against someone playing Daughters of Khaine, what I ended up being interested in is what they didn't get off rather than what they did.
Yes.
Now it's a lot more like there's going to be a lot more strategy and thinking required there.
Yeah, other good points being made in the chat is that there are high drops, which is also going to factor in. Although they do have some good battalions, like they really do, and it's cheap enough that you maybe would throw some battalions in for some extra artifacts, which I could absolutely see that being the case, because also you generate a CP, which is again not nothing. Doomfires finally have a place in the army, which I think is great. They're bonkers. I could definitely see Doomfire armies being a thing. Heart Renders. They've got a place. So the internal parity is actually pretty good. You could rotate a lot of those units around and decide to choose different stuff. The conversation between Witch Elves and Sisters of Slaughter. Sisters of Slaughter are probably doing really well. But there's, it's a great book. Yeah? It's I think that they've done a good job. Argument that they've done a good job just by making everything cheap, that's kind of like the question I wanted to ask you last. Do you think that we keep talking about the points, and obviously it's a bit of a joke in the show? Do you think that the points are so low that's what makes everything viable, or do you think, hearing it, that the temples, the sub-factions, and the spell lore and the prayers actually made the army does the book understand itself? Is the question I'm really asking, if that makes sense.
Right.
Which is a complicated question, I know, but I wondered if you had any thoughts about it, because Nathan, the Gits book doesn't really understand itself, which is pretty on message.
Fuck you.
I just meant I more mean the keywords and the moon and how a lot of it integrates with itself, right?
Yeah. So it understands itself, but it's just full of animosity, because it's like, fuck you, which is the way it should be, I guess. But it just makes it more tricky to play with. So that, obviously there's not a great deal of synergy across the book. But then for it to work well, you need to get buffs on things. So that sort of pigeonholes you a bit. But yeah, I mean, whereas this one, you don't have the range. The book is still split between the snaky ones and the more female type
leggy ones.
Yeah, the leggy ones. Yeah, snaky
the
ones
the
and
leggy
more
ones.
humanoid shaped ones.
Yeah.
So, and I assume that there's a bit of a difference in some of the buffs on the keywords there, with the Colgins and stuff mainly buffing the witches and the sisters, whereas the Iron Scale and them will buff the snaky ones. So there is that aspect to it. But yeah, it's just that I think the buffs are pretty straightforward and pretty simple, and they work really well, and they do a good job. And the buffing pieces are not expensive at all. They are cheap as they come. So whereas the standard stuff is probably about right, and maybe the buffing pieces that's what you should be paying. But just unless you're Seraphon, nobody else is paying those prices.
Yeah.
I can't get over 160 for the snake lady on the
thing is it probably doesn't even make it in the list.
Yeah.
It probably doesn't even make it in the list. Like,
It's
there's
the
other
220
stuff.
one that's scary.
Has she
I
got
think.
any access to pluses to cast? Like, is there any artifacts or anything?
There's an artifact, I think, with a +1 or a reroll in there. So yeah,
And Marathi has plus to cast, does she?
+1 to cast. Yeah.
And then the Doomfires have got +1 if there's more than 5 of them or whatever. So yeah.
I mean, to be fair, if you were thinking of taking a wizard anyway, you might as well spend an extra 60 points and add 7 more wounds onto her for 60 points. So it's pretty good. Yeah. So that's pretty good. Yeah. Like, and also her spell is arguably one of the best spells in the book. -1 to wound is a wicked spell to cast.
Yeah.
Like, that's great. Shooting attack is decent as well. Like, you're dealing with Marathi. You're dealing with Marathi, maybe 30 psychos, Sisters Slaughter, or Witch Elves, whatever the situation. And this, like, Snake Lady comes up and just eyeball stares you to death. You're like, oh no. It's a lot of mortal wounds. Mortek Guard. Like, it's interesting, right? Mortek Guard are 130 for 10? 120, 130 for 10? And she's 160. She'll delete like 3 of them from mortal. Like she'll hammer a brick of Mortek Guard. She won't kill them, but she'll like take a third off, which is quite cool. But yeah, so pretty decent at the end of the day. All right, sweet. It's been long, and I know you guys are tired, so we'll head out.
Oh no, I think I just can't do it. I just can't do it. Like, you look at the points, like ogre man-eaters are still obscenely overpointed, and yet,
But maybe everything's about to get reduced in 3.0. Who knows?
Yeah, or else this book is just gonna be whenever 3.0, so summer. So you just get spring playing with these, and then.
Or maybe what we're gonna see is
no
like
more or maybes for James.
A limit to 1 monster per army, or behemoth, or whatever. So they only get 1 shrine, and then I only get 1 Gorgon, and then I have to quit the game. And
I think one of the key takeaways from this, and we'll talk about this more maybe on the show next week or the week after, like, is that, like, not to be too serious about it, but it's quite clear that 2 different people wrote the 2 different books that got released at the weekend. Like, it's a significant, like, it's quite, even to the point where they didn't go to a central editing place where they were like, okay, the Witch Elves were 100 points, but Twin Souls, when we get to them next week, were 160 or 180, I forget. I think they're 160 points. And you're like, right. Like, why do you think that those marry up with each other? Like, where in your brain does that make sense? Like, and there isn't, like, I know that in the White Dwarf article recently, or whenever, they posted some sort of formula, but there just isn't a way that makes any sense. Like, the points that we saw for Seraphon, and Tzeentch to a degree, but, like, the Mortals and Zangor got roughed up quite a lot there. Like, Seraphon definitely is a good example. Seraphon in this book are like, cool, you guys were appointed by the same guy. Same person did this job. But, but the SNES stuff and something else. And what's interesting is you, like, even if 2 different people wrote the different books, the points would be done, you would think, in unison, like, into the ecosystem of the game.
Yeah, and there'd be some kind of communication between the 2. Yeah, planning it.
Yeah, and it just doesn't see it to be a synergy, and that'll be a conversation that we have at some point again in the future. Like, maybe we'll do the SNES book next week, and then if no releases come out the week after, what we'll do is we'll do like a comparison. It'll be a fun, like, journey between, like, units that compare with each other, because I think like, ultimately it's weird, and I don't know if you guys have got any vibes on it. I mean, obviously the kind of takeaway is that's just bad. Like, that sucks. Shucks for us. But it's daunting, right, when you try and have these conversations, because you assume from a big company that there would be some sort of, like, good management of at least the points a bit. I don't know.
I think for me, they should either, like, and I know we'll talk about another point, but they should either just go down the road of trying to balance better along all the points, or you just take, like, or you go Blood Bowl and you're just like, you want to win most of your games, but you want to have it easy. You take these armies, we know they're better. You want to play halflings, take Beasts of Chaos. No, you want the bad army, here they are. Tier your own armies.
I think you find Beasts of Chaos have got like a 55% win rate at TTS, so just throw Throwing that curveball out there.
I'll be back. I'm going in the loft.
like it's like Scott B makes a good point in the chat. It's pretty insulting when you think about it. Like, it's insulting when they'd release the Mortek Crawler and then they do the Arachnarok Flinger. Like, it's just anyway, whatever. I don't want to bum us out at the end of the day. But it's a weird one. Like, it's been a weird journey this weekend, I think, for the community, and I didn't want to ignore it because I think it's you could do it with books that already exist, but you could talk about when they were released and when they weren't released. I think that like there's some sort of conversation there, but when they're released on the same weekend and there's such a weird disparity, it's odd. Like, it's odd.
Well, yeah, I have a feeling, I think these guys will fare okay against the likes of Seraphon and stuff. But from the sounds of things, I don't think the other fellas have got a chance.
No. All right, cool. All right, well, any shout-outs, anything you want to do before we head out? Anyone got anything? You just want to leave?
I just want to shout out everybody in the chat who really enjoys how much fucking bullshit points breaks me like
when
deep
I said
inside of me.
When I said 160, you guys were like, oh yeah, for 10. And you were like, fuck.
But like just I think Mamdare was stoked just to see the soul drain from my eyes. So yeah, I just wanted to say shout out to all of you who you big bastard masochists who get off on my pain. I love you all.
James, you got any shout outs?
Yeah, big. So this week I'm going to do a big shout out. Normally I get everyone to tag Dan on Twitter. So we're going to take a week out this week.
Oh.
Pre-big shout out to anyone who brought a pair of undergarments, takes a photo of themselves in them and tags Nathan in that post.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I don't mind seeing people in their underwear.
Stu like I've asked.
Yeah, that's fine.
Nathan, you got any shout outs?
No, well, I'll just shout out the chat even though I don't read it, so.
As they like to call themselves, the Nathan Prescott Fan Club. Thanks to everyone. Thanks to Health and Safety Hobo for following us as well. Appreciate you. You make sure you get your OSHA up to standard or whatever that means. Thanks to everyone in the chat. You guys are great. Thanks to everyone on Patreon. Love and support to you. Thank you for all the donations for the attempted hostile podcast takeover by Jacob Berry. Thanks to Carwin, Big Goldfish. I see your intern Matt. Don't forget to join us for Age of Sigmar content. Don't forget to join us Saturday for a knockout Age of Sigmar tournament. We're going to do live TTS coverage, so it's going to be super fun. Thanks very much. Join me all week. Thanks for the podcast bros. Everyone have a nice day. Thanks, lastly, and most importantly, to my 3 co-hosts, who are wonderful people who turn up with a great attitude every week to have fun. Super lovely guys, and I just love them forever. So thanks very much. You guys have a great day.